Chapter 581. 10,000? 10,000 is fine. This shirt is mine. When Jiang Hai heard his words, he waved to AI Xiaoxi and took out a stack of money from her bag. This was the money that Jiang Hai had just bought the car. He was afraid that he couldn't swipe his car to get a license plate at the Department of Motor Vehicles. He didn't know that he could swipe his card until he went there. Therefore, Jiang Hai now had 20,000 yuan, and this was 10,000 of it. Seeing Jiang Hai throw 10,000 yuan over, Brother Hao was obviously stunned. In fact, he came here to look for trouble. He couldn't believe that an old man selling leeks had 10,000 yuan in cash, but now he had to believe it. Okay, this is the end of it. You have guts. Although he deliberately came here to look for trouble, in the face of real money, Brother Hao was still ready to let them go today. He didn't believe that these people would not come to town. He took the money, looked at it, and felt that it was enough. He stuffed it into his trouser pocket and then was ready to leave. Wait a minute. Did you forget something? Seeing that the man was about to turn and leave, Jiang Hai called out to stop him. What? You want to give me another 10,000? Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Brother Hao turned his head and asked with a look of displeasure. No, your clothes are mine. I'll have to trouble you to take it off. Jiang Hai shook his head and said to Jiang Hao. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Jiang Hao couldn't help but open his mouth. Jiang Hai was right, so he winked at his underling. This underling went to the stall selling clothes next to him and brought back a new shirt. Jiang Hao directly took off the shirt in front of everyone, threw it at Jiang Hai's feet, and put on the new shirt. This time I'm leaving. In his opinion, changing clothes in public was not a big deal. Looking at Jiang Hai's appearance, he chuckled and turned to leave, but this time Jiang Hai stopped him again. What? There's something else. Hearing Jiang Hai call out to him again, Jiang Hao couldn't help but frown and said with a cold expression, It's nothing. Your problem has been solved, but my uncle's problem hasn't been solved yet. My uncle has a total of 8 footprints on his body. I'll just treat it as 8 of your footprints. Each of your footprints is worth 1,000,000 yuan, so the total is 8,000,000 yuan. The chives on the ground were carefully raised by my uncle. Each one costs 10,000 yuan. I'll give you a round number. Take 20 million, and we'll call it even. Jiang Hai said calmly as he pointed at AI Xiaoxi's father and the chives on the ground. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the onlookers couldn't help but gasp. 20 million. It was as if saying these 3 words from their mouths required a lot of courage. But looking at Jiang Hai's understatement, it didn't seem like he was joking, and these people's faces instantly darkened. Jiang Hao stretched his neck and walked over with a gloomy face. Boy, are you joking? Looking at Jiang Hai, Jiang Hao's pair of dead fish eyes rolled and looked at him. No, I'm serious. Also, don't get so close to me. You have bad breath. Hearing Jiang Hao's words, Jiang Hai said indifferently. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Jiang Hao's eyes narrowed, and he roared with a face full of anger, Go! Kill them for me. Leave that woman for me, hit. Hearing Jiang Hao's order, several of his underlings behind him rushed up immediately. Looking at Jiang Hai standing still, they thought that Jiang Hai was scared silly. They went up and kicked Jiang Hai's chest. After this kick, Jiang Hai took a step back, and then a smile appeared on his face. This time it's self-defense. After staying in the United States for a long time, Jiang Hai played this trick of deceiving and counterattacking very well every time. Looking at the shoe print on his chest, Jiang Hai chuckled, and then without saying a word, he stepped aside and dodged the second person's kick, and a fist directly hit this person's face. The huge impact seemed to make this person's face sink, and he flew straight back like a sack. After hitting a stall, his head tilted and he fainted, but at this time, his face was already covered with blood, his nose was collapsed, and a few of his front teeth were knocked out. But this time, the other punks didn't know this. Because they had already rushed over, Jiang Hai never meant to be merciful when dealing with these punks. Without saying a word, he went up and hit a person's temple, directly sending this person flying out horizontally. After landing, he was stunned. This blow would at least cause a severe concussion, and it was impossible for him to get up. With another sidestep, he dodged the other hoodlum's fist. Grabbing the hoodlum's arm, Jiang Hai bent it without hesitation. Ah! With a scream, The gangster's arm was instantly bent by Jiang Hai at a 90-degree angle. Seeing Jiang Hai cripple 3 of his underlings in an instant, the last underling who ran slower and hadn't attacked yet was stunned. His whole body was stunned, looking at Jiang Hai. Now he really didn't know whether to advance or retreat. On the other side, AI Xiaoding and AI Xiaoxi's father were also stunned because they really didn't expect Jiang Hai to have such a strong fighting power and to be so ruthless. In AI Xiaowi's eyes, Jiang Hai's originally abnormally tall figure seemed to be a lot taller. Now he was still a hot-blooded youth, and it would be strange if he didn't admire such a person with such explosive fighting power. Behind this punk, Zhang Hao's eyes were not only a trace of confusion and a trace of fear, but also a trace of ruthlessness. He really didn't expect Jiang Hai to be a martial artist. Behind his back, he quietly took out a switchblade from his waist. As he took out the switchblade, he went forward and pushed the punk. This punk subconsciously ran towards Jiang Hai. His face was full of fear, but Jiang Hai didn't care about him and directly kicked this guy in the face. The huge impact directly kicked this guy to the ground, and he covered his face, losing the ability to fight. Go to hell. But at this moment, Zhang Hao shouted and stabbed Jiang Hai's stomach with the switchblade from behind. Looking at Zhang Hao's movement, Jiang Hai's eyes narrowed. This guy wanted to kill him. If this was the United States, Jiang Hai could directly kill him, but now he was in Huaxia, and Jiang Hai couldn't easily kill people. So looking at Zhang Hao's movement, Jiang Hai sighed. Sometimes in China, he felt that his hands and feet were tied, and it was really uncomfortable. However, although he couldn't take his life, Jiang Hai wasn't someone to be trifled with. Looking at the daggers stabbing towards him, Jiang Hai didn't say anything. He grabbed the hand holding the dagger with one hand and grabbed his elbow with the other. He directly bent his arm back with his force. He didn't give Zhang Hao any chance at all. The switchblade directly stabbed into his left shoulder. Ah! The dagger pierced his shoulder. Zhang Hao was also stunned. At most, he was just a small bully. Usually, he was quite good at fighting, but this time, he was scared to death. At the same time, he also felt a sharp pain. Looking at Zhang Hao lying on the ground with his arms around his shoulders, Jiang Hai clapped his hands. With this, they still dare to come out and rob? Young man, run quickly. This Zhang Hao's uncle is the deputy director of the town police station. When we saw the conflict just now, we had already called the police. I think the police will be here soon. If you don't leave now, you won't be able to leave. Seeing that Jiang Hai stood here without any intention to run, an old man next to him couldn't help but come over and said to Jiang Hai. Hearing the old man's words, Jiang Hai smiled and nodded, but he didn't mean to leave. Scared? This word had never appeared in his dictionary. Was the deputy director of a police station very powerful? At least Jiang Hai didn't think so. Who told him to have so much money? But this didn't mean that he would just wait. Picking up the phone, Jiang Hai called Moses Adams. Of course, he didn't ask him to come over to deal with this. It was too troublesome to ask him to come over, but he could recommend the top lawyer in Huaxia. After listening to the call from Jiang Hai, Moses Adams, who was about to fall asleep at this time, woke up in an instant. He immediately searched and then gave Jiang Hai a phone number. After recording the phone number, Jiang Hai called the owner of the phone. After giving the name, the person immediately became respectful. The person introduced by Moses Adams was a top lawyer in the capital of Huaxia. There was no problem with his ability. But in terms of reputation, it is indeed a lot worse than those big lawyer groups. And people like Jiang Hai, who has a net worth of 10 billion yuan, generally speaking, are unlikely to look for him. This is also an opportunity for him to look for him. He immediately agreed and immediately bought a plane ticket to come here. According to him, almost 3 hours was enough. Jiang Hai didn't say anything about this. He just stood there and waited for the arrival of the police. If these police came and followed the normal procedure, then Jiang Hai would only sue Zhang Hao and a few others. But if some melodramatic plot happened after the police came, then Jiang Hai might turn the world upside down. In fact, he had a lot of cards in the country. The Cheese Group and the National Security Agency, no matter which one, were at the highest level. If he was talking about face, then he wouldn't give anyone face. If everything was done according to legal procedures, then Zhang Hai would have nothing to say. If they were still playing dirty, then Zhang Hai wouldn't cover it up for them. He had the strength to overturn all of this. Just as Zhang Hai finished the phone call, less than 5 minutes later, several police cars appeared outside the crowd. Then several policemen came over from the crowd. Looking at the scene in front of them, these policemen's eyes couldn't help but freeze. Who is the informant? Looking at the situation at this time, a middle-aged policeman shouted loudly to the surroundings. "Uncle Zheng, this kid stabbed me with a knife. You have to uphold justice for me." Probably hearing the voice of the middle-aged policeman, Zhang Hao, who was lying on the ground and was about to faint, couldn't help but shout to the middle-aged policeman. Chapter 582. Hearing Zhang Hao's words, everyone's heart skipped a beat. AI Xiaoxi's family of 3 thought that they were in trouble. AI Xiaoxi knew that Zhang Hai had some power in the country. Thinking about the Qi clan, Zhang Hai understood. With the Qi clan as his backer, not to mention Zhang Hao, even if Zhang Hai wanted to deal with the town's mayor, it wouldn't be a problem. The only problem was that the county magistrate wasn't as good as the current mayor. The Qi family's name was indeed useful, but what if the other party directly arrested them and forced them to confess and directly convicted them? Then the Qi family would be useless. It had to be admitted that sometimes people watch too much news and movies. They would have a slight paranoia. Whenever something happened, they would always plan for the worst. However, one must always be vigilant. Who knew if such a thing would happen, especially in a place far away from the emperor? When AI Xiaohui saw the police come in, he also thought about this. Then, he took out his mobile phone and began to record. He did not know that the glasses on Zhang Hai's face were not only used as a driving recorder. His glasses were also recording the whole process. Otherwise, he would not have been so heavy-handed. Like the AI family of 3, Zhang Hai's heart also skipped a beat. However, he was not afraid like them. He was a little excited. In the past, he often read novels like this. The gangsters colluded with the police, the officials, and the gangsters. Then, the protagonist beat up the gangsters. The police came and arrested the protagonist without saying a word. Then, they took him to the police station and tortured him. At the critical moment, the protagonist's connections played a role. The lawyer or something came and slapped the gangsters in the face. Although it was melodramatic, more than 90% of urban novels had such a scene. There were so many articles in the world. Zhang Hai was not sure if he would be so inspired in the future. However, if they dared to do so, it would be strange if Zhang Hai did not turn this place upside down. One had to know that his roots were not in the country, but in the country, he knew the top existences. He had money, power, and influence. Although a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake, he did not consider the problem of whether or not to occupy this place. What connections? What friendships? They were useless in his eyes. If anyone dared to touch him, he would uproot them. Yes, uprooting. Not only did they want to arrest Zhang Hao, Zhang Hao's uncle Umbrella, the director of the police station, and the mayor of the town were also arrested. If the supervision was not good enough, they would all be fired. Why did Zhang Hai make money? A better and more comfortable environment was inevitable. But other than that, it was even more important to smash these people that he had disliked in the past. However, what surprised Zhang Hai was that the man Zhang Hao called Uncle Zheng didn't immediately walk over with a straight face and handcuff him without saying a word. Instead, he stood in place and looked around before walking toward Zhang Hao and the others. The policeman behind him also checked the injuries of the thugs and immediately called for an ambulance. As for the policeman surnamed Zheng, he squatted in front of Zhang Hao and looked at him so seriously. "Tell me, did you drink again? Why are you disobedient? Why are you drinking in the daytime?" Pointing at Zhang Hao, the policeman surnamed Zheng couldn't help but say sternly. Hearing the words of the policeman surnamed Zheng, not only Zhang Hao, but everyone was stunned. Even Zhang Hai was stunned. He didn't understand. What was going on? What did this have to do with whether the kid drank or not? At this time, shouldn't the police directly rush over, take him away, and then carry on with the drama? What's wrong with the situation? Just as Zhang Hai was puzzled, Zhang Hao reacted, Ah, I drank a little at noon, but Uncle Jean, I didn't drink too much. Hey, why is there a dagger on my arm? Looking at the policeman, surnamed Zhang, Zhang Hao was a little puzzled, but he continued to follow his words. Because he knew that the policeman, surnamed Zhang, was his uncle's confidant, it was impossible for him not to help him. Even if he didn't help him on the surface, he would definitely help him behind his back. But now that he said this, the situation was not good. Kid, behave yourself. You take him to the hospital. Seeing Zhang Hao react, the police officer surnamed Zhang snorted coldly and then said to the police officers behind him. Then these police officers gathered them together and waited for the 120 to come. As for the policeman surnamed Zhang, he walked in front of Jiang Hai with a smile on his face. This time, it should be that bastard who caused this. I'm really sorry. If you have any losses, I will inform the kid's family and make up for your losses. We are all from the same village. There is no need to be too stiff, right? Moreover, they're also injured like that. Looking at Jiang Hai, the policeman surnamed Zhang said with a smile, "What's the situation with you guys?" Looking at this policeman, Jiang Hai was more and more confused. Is this still our people's police? When did he become so easy to talk to? Jiang Hai has never seen such an easygoing policeman in his life. What else can it be? We also know that this bastard usually does not do good things on the surface, so we also came to deal with it. There is no need to make this matter too big. If you want to settle it privately, then let's forget about it. If you want to go through a civil lawsuit, then come back with us to make a statement. Who is responsible will be compared at that time. Hearing Jiang Hai's puzzled remarks, the policeman surnamed Zhang also chuckled and then said to Jiang Hai. Looking at his appearance, Jiang Hai was a little confused. Then he looked back at AI Xiaoxi and found that they were also a little confused. Could it be that there's a high-ranking official here? You guys have changed your approach. Looking at these people in front of him, Jiang Hai said with some doubts, "But if this matter is settled like this, Jiang Hai has no way to pursue it. After all, AI Xiaoxi's father had only been kicked a few times, but these guys would have to lie in bed for at least 2 or 3 months to recover. Moreover, Jiang Hai had to consider for the AI family. If he really offended these local tyrants, it would be fine if he was here, but if he wasn't, it would be a little troublesome. Oh, what do you think of my proposal?" Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the policeman surnamed Zhang did not say anything, but asked Jiang Hai. At the same time, his eyes were also looking at AI Xiaoxi's father. Okay, but you have to ask him to return the 10,000 yuan he took from us." Hearing the policeman's words, AI Xiaoxi's father was still afraid of trouble. Since ancient times, people did not fight with officials. This sentence was also true in modern times. The magistrate who destroyed the family. The county magistrate who destroyed the family. Although the other party is not the county magistrate here, his authority is not small. Now is a new society, and they don't dare to be so brazen. After all, this place is not far from Wei City, and it is not a place that is completely ungoverned. But if the other party wants to mess with you, they will have to suffer for a long time. So after hesitating for a while, AI Xiaoxi's father decided to let it go. He won't die from a few kicks. This is what we should do. Although he did not know what happened, the policeman surnamed Zhang immediately reacted. He went to Zhang Hao and took out the 10,000 yuan that Jiang Hai gave him from his pocket, then returned it to Jiang Hai and the others. After getting the money, AI Xiaoxi's father left with Jiang Hai and the others. This made Jiang Hai a little unhappy. After saving the video, he called the lawyer he had just contacted and told him not to come over for the time being. Jiang Hai was also afraid that these guys might have something up their sleeves. If they waited for them to leave, then these people would make things difficult for them. After all, he had read a lot of dark novels before. Killing and arson were not something that these people would not dare to do. Seeing Jiang Hai and the others leave, the policeman surnamed Zhang could not help but let out a long sigh. He gently wiped the sweat on his forehead. At this moment, the ambulance arrived. The policeman surnamed Zhang sat next to Zhang Hao and got into the ambulance together. "Uncle Zhang, did some big shot come to town? You were so careful today." After getting into the ambulance, Zhang Hao stopped pretending to be drunk. He held his shoulder and raised his head, gritted his teeth, and asked the middle-aged policeman with a puzzled expression, There haven't been any big shots in town recently, but the one you offended is a big shot. Hearing Zhang Hao's words, the policeman surnamed Zheng glanced at him and then said lightly. Hearing what he said, Zhang Hao was a little puzzled. In fact, just as Zhang Hai thought just now, this guy was deliberately looking for trouble, so he still had some understanding of the AI family. The only promising daughter of the AI family was working in a modeling company in the capital. Such a person could be considered a big shot. Don't bully him because he was not educated. He did not think that Jiang Hai was a powerful person. Go back and ask your uncle. If your uncle doesn't beat you, I will let you come back and beat me. The person you just offended is called Jiang Hai. He's a super rich man. His wife's family runs a first-tier company in the capital, and he is also in contact with the people at the top. I am sure that if I said a wrong word just now, not only me, you, your whole family, will have to pay for you in prison. Looking at Zhang Hao in front of him, the policeman surnamed Zheng couldn't help but snort coldly and said with a threatening face, "Hiss." Hearing his words, Zhang Hao was also stunned. He really couldn't see that Jiang Hai had so much power. I hope he will give up. Seeing that Zhang Hao knew how powerful he was, the policeman surnamed Zheng couldn't help but sigh and whisper. The reason why he knew about Jiang Hai was mainly because of a document. 2 months ago, when Jiang Hai was in China, he told the people at the top that he wanted to get some livestock back to the United States, and the donkeys in Lu province were also one of his goals. So in order to avoid trouble, the people in Lu province had quietly sent a message about Jiang Hai, telling the people below not to provoke this guy. The policeman surnamed Zheng obviously had a good memory. He still remembered it after 2 months. Chapter 583. The people here naturally didn't know what Jiang Hai was doing in the United States, but they knew about the relationship between Jiang Hai and the Qi group and the relationship with the higher-ups. This could be found out with a simple investigation. It was something on the surface, but it was something that these people couldn't afford to provoke. So after hearing the words of the police officer, surnamed Zhang Hao was honest. He knew that he was stabbed in vain. It was actually quite good to be stabbed. If he really did something wrong, his entire family would be in trouble. His whole family had been arrested. Not to mention whether he would die in prison. Even if he was released, he would have to live with his tail between his legs. All these years, he had offended a lot of people. Whether he would continue to live, who knew? For a while, the whole ambulance was quiet. After sending these people to the hospital in the town, those who needed to be registered and those who needed to be hospitalized could only be considered unlucky. After the police officer, surnamed Zheng, helped with these, he left first. He had to talk to his boss about this matter. Not long after he left, a guy with a sharp mouth and monkey-like cheeks came in from the outside with a basket of fruits. "Brother Hao, are you okay?" Looking at Zhang Hao, who was wrapped in 3 layers of clothes after taking out the dagger, the monkey-like man asked in a low voice while walking inside. But when he heard his voice, Zhang Hao opened his eyes in an instant. Without looking, he directly picked up the remaining water that the police officer surnamed Zheng had just drunk and threw it at the door. This person clearly didn't expect Zhang Hao to throw the water directly at him. He didn't dodge for a while and was hit on the head by the water bottle, which instantly caused a big bruise. "Ouch! Ouch! Ouch! Brother Hao, what are you doing?" Covering his head, this person couldn't help but scream. He really didn't understand what this guy was doing. He was fine just now. Why did he suddenly go crazy? Why? I want to ask you why. What did you tell me? The AI family is an ordinary carpenter family? F*CKU. Do you know who is the man that the girl you like has found? How dare you come over here? Looking at this guy, Zhang Hao roared loudly. Hearing his words, that guy's face was full of doubts and puzzlement. In fact, today's matter was a trap. The sharp-mouthed, monkey-cheeked man was none other than Lu Lao-san, the son of the village chief. His name was Lu Zheng, but he really didn't know which part of him was righteous. His face was slanted and his heart was evil. There was nothing righteous about him. Although Lu Zheng's father made money by enclosing land in the village, he was still able to do things well because he was from the village. After all, this place wasn't too far from Wei City. If they really caused a ruckus, no one would be able to save them. Therefore, he wouldn't do anything to AI Xiaoxi just because her father didn't want to marry her to his son. If this matter didn't work out, it wouldn't work out. But Lu Zheng couldn't. He wasn't someone who was easy to deal with. After seeing AI Xiaoxi, he was really shocked. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to AI Xiaoxi's uncle and aunt to talk about this. But the day before yesterday, when he found out that AI Xiaoxi had brought her boyfriend back, he was furious. He wanted to find trouble with Jiang Hai, but he heard that AI Xiaoxi's boyfriend was more than 190 centimeters tall and strong. In addition, the AI family had some reputation in the village. It was impossible for him to find someone from the village to find trouble with Jiang Hai. Just as he was worrying, he saw AI Xiaoxi and her family of 4 drive into town today. So he took note of it. He specifically looked for Zhang Hao, who was also not a good person, and promised him 5,000 yuan to help him give Jiang Hai and the others a lesson. He didn't need to make a big deal out of it. He just needed to beat up old man AI first. After attracting Jiang Hai's attention, he would beat up Jiang Hai. Then, he would come out to save the beauty at this time. First, he wanted to let Jiang Hai know the difficulty and back off. Second, he would gain prestige, and it was very likely that he would win the beauty's heart. But who knew that Jiang Hai's background was much more powerful than he imagined? And he was so good at fighting. Just now, he had been hiding behind the crowd and watching all of this happen. It was really too dramatic. So now he had to buy some fruits to visit Zhang Hao. He originally thought that Zhang Hao was scared in the end because there was a high-ranking official in town. But now, it seemed that this Jiang Hai was someone he could mess with. Hearing Zhang Hao's roar, Lu Zheng couldn't do anything except stand there and smile. Let me tell you, today's matter is all your fault. Quickly send the 5,000 yuan to me, and also the medical expenses of my brothers. I tell you, if there's a penny missing, I'll make you suffer. Seeing that Lu Zheng had been scared by him and the big bump on his head, Zhang Hao took a deep breath and then put forward his request. It's my duty, it's my duty. Although this matter didn't succeed, it was necessary to pay some blood. Lu Zheng immediately nodded. At the same time, the fire in his heart for AI Xiaoxi was extinguished a lot. People like him were not as infatuated and single-minded as Yu Hongji. He just wanted to do something when he saw the beauty. Now that he knew that this beauty was not someone he could afford to offend, he would learn to let go. He had no choice but to let go. In his eyes, he was the most important. It was not worth it to lose his family's happiness for a girl. Regardless of how Zhang Hao and Lu Zheng talked about this, on the other side, Jiang Hai and the other 3 were on their way home. Jiang Hai was also a little puzzled. The plot was not right. This was supposed to be the rhythm of 3 or 5 chapters. Why did it suddenly end? This made him a little depressed. It was like doing something with a beauty. The front part was almost done, but the beauty told you that her relatives came. She had hemorrhoids and mouth ulcers. She just did it. It was fake. It was as if he couldn't pick it up. It was really unpleasant. He couldn't even pretend to be a fool anymore. How could there be true love in this world? While Jiang Hai was depressed, AI Xiaoxi's father didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He remembered that when he came, he specifically told Jiang Hai that he didn't need to buy a car for AI Xiaowei. In the end, he didn't look after AI Xiaowei for a few hours, and AI Xiaowei bought a new car. And it didn't look cheap. AI Xiaoxi's father, who had never owed anyone anything in his life, couldn't help but sigh. His family owed Jiang Hai too much. Although there was a layer of relationship between Jiang Hai and AI Xiaoxi. But he didn't want his daughter to be a person with no right to speak beside Jiang Hai. In the northern region, male chauvinism was rampant. Although AI Xiaoxi's father was afraid of his wife, he still had the final say in the family's matters. For example, when AI Xiaoxi wanted to go to college, the family's income, expenses, and so on, he had the final say. In his opinion, Jiang Hai was from Bing City and was probably a male chauvinist. Under such circumstances, if his daughter wanted to have a say in the family, she would either have to rely on her family or herself. Since he couldn't count on her family, he could only count on AI Xiaoxi herself. If Jiang Hai knew what AI Xiaoxi's father was thinking, he would probably die of embarrassment. In fact, he wasn't a good man at all. The 2 cars returned to the small village one after the other, and stopped in front of AI Xiaoxi's house. It attracted a lot of attention from the neighbors. When they saw AI Xiaowi get out of the car, the discussion became louder. Because of a delay in town, Jiang Hai couldn't catch up with AI Xiaoxi today. So Jiang Hai and the others stayed at home for the whole afternoon. The next day, AI Xiaowi, who had just bought a new car, couldn't resist the urge to touch the car. So Jiang Hai, AI Xiaoxi, and AI Xiaowi drove to Wei City. After returning Jiang Hai's rental car, the three of them rode in AI Xiaowi's new car and went around Wei City for a while before returning home at night. But when they returned home, the small village was in an uproar. Almost everyone in the village knew that the AI family was rich this time. AI Xiaoxi had found a rich man outside. This man was young, good-looking, big, and had a good temper. Most importantly, the incident at the market yesterday had spread. He could fight, protect others, and most importantly, it seemed that the police in town were quite afraid of him. With all these things gathered together, it seemed that Jiang Hai was the perfect, rich husband. They had no way of finding a good son-in-law like Jiang Hai, but AI Xiaowi, a young man who was originally not conspicuous in the small village, had entered the eyes of many people. In the past, AI Xiaowi had undergone major surgery and might not live long. He didn't have any skills to make a living. If any family's daughter married him, it would be looking for trouble. Naturally, he wouldn't be welcomed by others. But now it was different. AI Xiaoxi found Jiang Hai, which meant that the rich man Jiang Hai was AI Xiaowi's brother-in-law. If AI Xiaowi had any problems in the future, this brother-in-law would definitely help him. Most importantly, with a car, AI Xiaowi could pull some strings here. This was a business that was guaranteed to be profitable. They were quite interested in this. For a while, many anxious people had already stepped over the threshold to discuss it. However, there were still some people who were waiting to see if AI Xiaowi had the good fortune to do so. Such a change, in the eyes of the AI family, was something to be happy about. Because of Jiang Hai's arrival, the family had become lively again. Perhaps these past few days were the happiest days that the AI family had in the past 2 years. But time always passed by. In the blink of an eye, there was only one day left in September. Jiang Hai and the others would leave tomorrow. Chapter 584. There was an old saying that went, "No one cares about the poor in the city, but the rich have distant relatives in the deep mountains." But sometimes, the old saying wasn't accurate. Another old saying went, "Good news never leaves the house, but bad news travels 1,000 miles." Now that the AI family had found Jiang Hai, this should be considered a good thing. But this good news didn't stay hidden. Therefore, it didn't take long for the news to spread. The news that AI Xiaoxi had found a young, rich, good-looking, good-natured, and strong boyfriend spread in the nearby small village within a day. But Jiang Hai didn't care about this, because his relationship with AI Xiaoxi was indeed like that. Although it seemed a little complicated, Jiang Hai wouldn't deny this news. These days, some middle-aged women in the village often happened to pass by AI Xiaoxi's house. If they saw the AI family, they would greet them warmly and conveniently ask about Jiang Hai's situation. Just like this, the news of Jiang Hai's group spread in the small village without them noticing. On the 30th of September, Jiang Hai's group originally booked a flight for the 1st of October, which was the day before they left. AI Xiaoxi's mother's relatives brought gifts to AI Xiaoxi's house. But looking at the things they brought, Jiang Hai chuckled. Eggs, chickens, and even steamed buns. What the hell is this? After putting these things in AI Xiaoxi's house, they directly picked up the cigarettes that Jiang Hai bought for AI Xiaoxi's father and started to smoke. They also knew that the price of these cigarettes wasn't cheap. A box of these cigarettes was equivalent to the things they brought over. So naturally, they were happy to smoke. In the countryside, there were many women who smoked. For a while, it was as if the house was set on fire, causing smoke to swirl around. Jiang Hai didn't smoke, and AI Xiaoxi naturally didn't smoke either. AI Xiaowi had learned to smoke before, but now that his body was in such a state, wouldn't it be too slow for him to smoke? Therefore, the three of them went out and played at the beach for the whole afternoon. They only came back when it was time for lunch. Although these people had gone overboard when the AI family suffered a disaster a while ago, they were still relatives after all. Since they wanted to mend their relationship, AI Xiaoxi's mother was quite happy. He made a table full of good wine and dishes to entertain these people. When these people were at the table, their main target was Jiang Hai. Little Jiang, you're welcome. Come to your uncle and auntie's place as if you're home. Come eat. Once they were seated at the table, AI Xiaoxi's eldest aunt spoke to Jiang Hai enthusiastically. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai felt a little embarrassed. Logically speaking, they were real relatives. If they were close, there was nothing wrong with what they said. But the problem was that they weren't close to each other in the first place. Why did they come here to pretend to be seniors? Hearing her words, AI Xiaoxi felt a little awkward. Come. Eat. Seeing that the atmosphere at the table was a little awkward, AI Xiaoxi's mother started to make arrangements. When Jiang Hai heard AI Xiaoxi's mother's words, he smiled and began to eat. But before he could eat 2 mouthfuls, AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle appeared again. He held a glass of wine and gestured for Jiang Hai to drink. Drinking with elders was like this. Jiang Hai didn't stand on ceremony. He picked up the wine in front of him and drank a glass. After drinking this glass of wine, AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle's chatterbox was opened. His behavior as an elder was really full of style. Little Jiang, you said that we came here mainly to see your new son-in-law. You said that you haven't come back for the whole afternoon. We don't know much about you. I heard that you have some assets. Where did you get them from? Looking at Jiang Hai, AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle said with a serious face. Hearing his words, the others at the table were still eating, but their ears pricked up. To be honest, the reason they came here was because of Jiang Hai. This news was very important. Oh, I raise cattle in America. However, Jiang Hai wasn't stupid. He naturally knew why these people asked him this question, so he played it down. This wasn't the time to be pretentious, although Jiang Hai liked to pretend to be pretentious. But this also needed to pay attention to the timing. Sometimes, not saying anything was the best time to pretend. Raising cattle in America? Why not raise them in Huaxia? Why do you have to go so far away to raise cattle? Hearing Jiang Hai's words, AI Xiaoxi's eldest aunt said with a strange face. In their view, cattle were cattle. Cattle were only divided into ordinary cattle and dairy cows. She didn't understand what kind of cattle and what kind of cattle were. A pound of beef sold for thousands of yuan, in their view, only existed in nonsense stories. No matter whether others believed it or not, they wouldn't believe it. Originally, they thought that Jiang Hai was doing business or something like that. They really didn't think that Jiang Hai was raising cattle in America. Oh, the land in America is cheap. Hearing AI Xiaoxi's eldest aunt's words, Jiang Hai said very calmly. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle and eldest aunt looked at each other and didn't say anything. Then don't you have any ideas? He also raises cattle in China. You see, your eldest aunt's husband usually has nothing to do. If you raise cattle in China, your family can help you look after them. After finding out what Jiang Hai was doing, AI Xiaoxi's eldest aunt couldn't help but laugh and say. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but curse in his heart. Shameless. Why should Jiang Hai spend money to raise cattle in China and ask your family to look after them? Is he crazy? Why did he give up his ranch in America and come back to open a ranch here? If he really did this, his brain would be pierced. I don't have this idea for the time being. The land in China can't be inherited, so I don't have any feelings for this land. Hearing AI Xiaoxi's eldest aunt's words, Jiang Hai directly refused without leaving any room for negotiation. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, not only AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle and eldest aunt's face fell, but her eldest aunt's and eldest aunt's husband's faces also fell. Staying in America is not a long-term solution. After all, it's the foreigner's territory. It's not as comfortable as here, but everyone has their own ambitions. Little Jiang, I heard that the cattle raised abroad are different from the cattle raised here, right? Seeing that the atmosphere at the dinner table was a little cold, AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle asked Jiang Hai with a smile. Well, it's indeed different. Hearing AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle's words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but look at her eldest uncle in a new light. He actually knew that this thing was different. This really surprised Jiang Hai. He thought that in their eyes, there was only the difference between cows and cows. People who didn't raise cattle really didn't know this. For example, in China, cattle and water buffaloes were the main breeds. Water buffaloes were big in size, but their meat wasn't delicious. Although the meat of cattle wasn't as delicious as the beef from abroad, the meat quality was at least better than that of water buffaloes. But most people still couldn't tell the difference between water buffaloes and cattle. This was a very rigid thing, and people in China didn't pay attention to this. I heard that beef from abroad is very expensive. I have some spare money here. I see that there are many people raising cattle here. Can you give me some of your cattle? I'll buy them. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, AI Xiaoxi's eldest uncle couldn't help but smile and say, after all, he was the youngest among these people. He also knew that it was unrealistic to get money from Jiang Hai with bare hands. It was just like when the AI family was in trouble, they didn't lend money. The money was theirs. If they wanted to borrow it, they could borrow it. If they didn't want to borrow it, they couldn't lend it. However, it was precisely because of this that their relationship with the AI family was a bit cold. After all, Jiang Hai was the son-in-law of the AI family. If Jiang Hai's money was from the AI family, then they might have a chance to get some money from him. But Jiang Hai's money was Jiang Hai's. It was normal for Jiang Hai to spend money on the AI family, but it was abnormal for him to spend it on them. So he thought of another way. Their neighbor's son was a college student. After graduating from college, he couldn't find a job, so he came over to raise cattle. Although he wasn't very successful, his vision was still there. Before coming, he specifically asked his neighbor. His neighbor had attended these classes before, so his neighbor knew that foreign cattle were much better than domestic cattle. Not only was the quality better, but the amount of meat produced was also more. If a cow was imported, it would be much more expensive than domestic cattle. A domestic beef cow could earn a few thousand yuan, but a foreign cow could earn tens of thousands of yuan. It was even more valuable than a domestic cow. It was precisely because of this that he was moved. After seeing his elder brother and elder sister being stifled, he expressed his thoughts. This may not work, but unfortunately, his proposal was the most difficult one for Jiang Hai. Why? In his opinion, Jiang Hai really didn't give him face by rejecting him like this. He didn't want it for free. He gave the money, but Jiang Hai didn't even do anything and directly rejected him. What did this mean? Foreign cattle are much better than domestic cattle. I think Uncle also knows this. But why is it that foreign cattle are better than domestic cattle, but China still doesn't import them? It's because foreign countries don't easily allow live cattle to go abroad, and China also doesn't allow foreign live cattle to enter Huaxia's market. Seeing her uncle's appearance, Jiang Hai thought for a moment and tried to explain it to him in layman terms. You haven't even tried. How do you know it won't work? But her uncle didn't listen to Jiang Hai's explanation. He still looked at Jiang Hai with an unhappy face. In his opinion, there was nothing in this world that couldn't be done with money. He was willing to spend money, but Jiang Hai still didn't do it. Then he looked down on him and didn't give him face. Jiang Hai just laughed at this. Seeing that reasoning couldn't be done, Jiang Hai didn't say anything. You can do whatever you want. Anyway, Jiang Hai can't get it in. Chapter 585. Next time, I don't want to come to your house. If your dad and mom want to see me, they can go to my manor to play. It's first class to and fro. Rubbing his temples, Jiang Hai sat in the first-class cabin with a headache and said to AI Xiaoxi next to him. When AI Xiaoxi heard Jiang Hai's words, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. Then, she patted Jiang Hai on the shoulder. Go to your manor? How are you going to hide your little lovers? Listening to Jiang Hai's words, AI Xiaoxi also leaned on Jiang Hai's arm and said with a smile, Last night's dinner, well, Jiang Hai was really unhappy. But he wasn't the only one who was unhappy. Almost everyone at the table was unhappy. AI Xiaoxi and her family didn't expect their relatives to be so shameless. After the meal, Lin Mingya and her family were stunned. After eating, the three families also left. After they left, Jiang Hai breathed a sigh of relief. Then, they stayed for another night. Early the next morning, AI Xiaohui drove them to the airport in Wei City. The tickets were booked yesterday. Although the flight time was very short, Jiang Hai still got 2 first-class tickets. Of course, the first-class cabin of this kind of small plane couldn't be compared with the first-class cabin of those big planes. The sofa was bigger, the environment was better, and they didn't have to squeeze with others, but the price was more than twice as expensive. But domestic flights, no matter how expensive it was, Jiang Hai didn't care about more than 2,000 yuan per person. So, 2 first-class tickets were necessary. If they had money, what was the use of that money if not enjoying it? To give birth to children? Where did the little lovers come from? You think too much. Hearing AI Xiaoxi's words, Jiang Hai smiled awkwardly and said with a righteous face. But when he said it, he felt that his words were a little flustered. TCH, don't let me ask you. That Aphrodite, Dana, Hilda, and the others, don't say that you have a pure relationship with them. They're all trying to get into your bed. They say that you are so honest. Regardless of whether others believe it or not, I don't believe it. AI Xiaoxi pinched Jiang Hai's arm and couldn't help but say with some jealousy. Looking at her, Jiang Hai could only smile more awkwardly and have nothing else to say. In fact, unknowingly, the relationship between Jiang Hai and AI Xiaoxi was also changing. If it was before Jiang Hai came back this time, AI Xiaoxi wouldn't be jealous of Jiang Hai. How many women Jiang Hai had outside had nothing to do with her. Because she wasn't Jiang Hai's girlfriend, she wouldn't care how many women Jiang Hai had outside. The status of those women was actually not much different from her, so she wouldn't have such thoughts. But this time, after Jiang Hai met her parents as her boyfriend, she couldn't help but have a ripple in her heart. To be honest, she now had the intention to take a step forward in her relationship with Jiang Hai. It seemed that she had to consider what Feng Yunshan had told her back then. But if she became Jiang Hai's girlfriend, she might have to accept that she wasn't the only one by Jiang Hai's side. This was what she was most conflicted about, and it was also what she needed to consider carefully. No one didn't want to be the only one by their man's side. But AI Xiaoxi couldn't do that, because at least she couldn't chase Feng Yunshan away. AI Xiaoxi didn't want to think about this for now. After watching a movie on the plane with Jiang Hai, the plane slowly landed at Bing City's Taiping International Airport. Wei City was not far from Bing City, and the plane arrived in no time. When Jiang Hai carried AI Xiaoxi's luggage out of the airport, he saw a group of people waiting for him from afar. Jiang Hai didn't inform too many people about his return this time. He didn't even tell Qi Li the exact time, but his buddies already knew that he was coming back. Before his plane landed, they had been waiting at the parking lot for a long time. When they saw Jiang Hai coming out, they couldn't help waving their hands. Seeing these buddies, Jiang Hai also smiled and walked over quickly. He gave them a punch first. This was their way of greeting each other. Of course, Jiang Hai had to hold back when he punched them. Otherwise, his buddies wouldn't be able to withstand his punch. You left for more than half a year and didn't even come back once. Are you really going to settle down in the U.S. and not come back? Looking at Jiang Hai, Huang Yunfei, who was about to be promoted to the groom, said with a smile, "You haven't seen this guy's manner before. If it were you, you wouldn't want to come back. It's so beautiful. You can eat, live, sleep, and have fun there. To be honest, if it weren't for my parents and my job here, I would have moved here to eat and live there." Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Fu Yuan, who was the only one who had been there, said enviously, "It's fine. At least you have been there. We haven't been there." Hearing Fu Yuan's yearning words, Su Wei sighed and said to him. Hearing what he said, Jiang Hai also laughed. "It's not easy to come here. You have to solve the problem of the plane ticket. After you arrive, you can eat, drink, play, and have fun." Looking at the few brothers in front of him who were a little emotional, Jiang Hai also laughed. These small amounts of money for fun were not worth mentioning to him. But as mentioned before, he and these brothers were equal. The most annoying thing among the brothers was to be divided into superiors and subordinates. They didn't care who had more money and who had less money. The relationship between them was different from that between colleagues and friends. There was no way to count money in this relationship. Jiang Hai could give them all their money, but the other party would not accept it. They were going there to have fun, not to ask for help. Okay, this time I'm married. I've asked for half a month's leave. I can go and have fun then. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but have some thoughts. He was not short of money. As a nurse, there was no such thing as a lack of money. Originally, he wanted to go to Europe for a honeymoon. He didn't care about spending 1 or 200,000 yuan. But going to Europe and the United States, 13 renminbi was about the same. Moreover, he could save some money. He could also go and have fun with Jiang Hai. This was a very happy thing. Let's see what he will say to his wife when he goes back. I don't seem to have anything to do recently. Count me in. Hearing that they were going to Jiang Hai's manor to have fun, Fu Yuan was also excited. Since the last time he went to Jiang Hai's manor, he had always wanted to go. This was an opportunity. I don't have anything to do recently, but I only have the money for the plane ticket. Hearing their words, Su Wei hesitated and said, Su Wei didn't have much work to do recently. It was almost winter, and Bing City was getting cold quickly. Therefore, a lot of work stopped in winter. In addition, after Fu Yuan came back last time, he bragged to Jiang Hai. The plane ticket was not expensive. Of course, the first-class ticket was expensive. But these old men didn't need to take the first class. They could just sit in the economy class for more than 10 hours. The economy class ticket from Beijing to the United States only cost more than 3,000 yuan. When it was cheaper, it could even be more than 2,000 yuan. When it was more than 1,000 yuan, they couldn't help but be tempted. Okay, come and have fun. Our manor is now open for tourism. There are many places to have fun. The last time Fu Yuan went there, he only played with my gun. This time, our shooting range has been expanded. You can go and have fun there. It's all mine. Hearing that these brothers wanted to go, Jiang Hai also laughed. They were going to his manor, and Jiang Hai was naturally very welcoming. Not for anything else, but for them to come to his manor to have fun. This could relieve Jiang Hai of a lot of boredom. As soon as they mentioned the gun, the sea, and the manor, Jiang Hai's brothers became excited and kept talking. Soon, Huang Yunfei, Su Wei, and Fu Yuan decided to go to Jiang Hai's manor to have fun. Xiang Hua, who came with them, couldn't. Although Xiang Hua had a close relationship with Jiang Hai, he didn't have much money. This didn't mean that he didn't even have 10,000 yuan, but it was because his wife had the final say in his family. The house he lived in now was bought by his wife, and his job was found by his father-in-law. In addition, his wife was pregnant, so he couldn't go to Jiang Hai's manor to have fun. He had no other choice but to sigh. At this time, AI Xiaoxi also walked to Jiang Hai's side and stood next to Jiang Hai. The first person to notice AI Xiaoxi was Huang Yunfei, the groom-to-be, but unfortunately, this groom-to-be wasn't a good person. Seeing a beautiful woman standing beside Jiang Hai, Jiang Hai couldn't help but cough subconsciously. Then, he deliberately turned his face to the side. His eyes that were originally teasing 13 also became deep as he looked at AI Xiaoxi and smiled. Miss, is there anything I can help you with? When he saw AI Xiaoxi looking at him, he couldn't help but ask softly, Oh, no need. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, AI Xiaoxi just smiled and then naturally held Jiang Hai's arm. Seeing this scene, Huang Yunfei almost fell, and the other people who came with him were also a little confused. By the way, let me introduce you. This is AI Xiaoxi, my friend. She came back with me this time. This is Huang Yunfei. This is Fu Yuan. This is Su Wei. This is Xiang Hua. These are all my good brothers. Looking at their appearance, Jiang Hai smiled and introduced AI Xiaoxi to everyone, and AI Xiaoxi also nodded to them one by one. I was wondering, when did you have a girl's heart getting a pink suitcase? Hearing Jiang Hai's introduction, Fu Yuan also nodded and said to Jiang Hai with a smile. It said that men become bad when they are rich. Jiang Hai, you have become bad. As for Huang Yunfei, he also said with a smile. Chapter 586. We'll drop you off here first. My wedding is on Sunday, which is the day after tomorrow. If you're free the day after tomorrow, come over and help me out." After dropping Jiang Hai and AI Xiaoxi off at Jiang Hai's house, Huang Yunfei specifically reminded him. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Jiang Hai also nodded, indicating that he understood. Although Huang Yunfei had a lot of money, some things could not be done with money. As his buddy, Huang Yunfei had to help out since he was back. For example, he had to shoot balloons and tie them up. The next morning, when they set off, he had to bring bricks and red paper to cover the manhole in his neighborhood. This was also what people in Bing City said. Jiang Hai had never attended a wedding in another city, so he did not know what people in other places said. On the morning of the wedding, he had to go downstairs to help out with the flowers and candy boxes. There were 8 pieces of candy and a pack of cigarettes in each candy box. There must be chocolate in the candy boxes. Of course, Huang Yunfei's father was the one who found someone to take care of all these things. Jiang Hai and the rest were only going to help out with the balloons and flowers. They did not need Jiang Hai and the rest to help out with the wedding. But on the morning of the wedding, they had to knock down the door. After talking to Jiang Hai, they saw that Jiang Hai and the others had been sitting in the car for a long time. They were also a bit tired. So they left first, and Jiang Hai and Jiang Xiaoxi returned to Jiang Hai's house in Bing City. Of course, before sending Jiang Hai and the rest home, they went for a meal. This was also considered as taking advantage of Jiang Hai. The meal was authentic Harbu cuisine. The main dish was double-cooked pork. This was Jiang Hai's favorite dish. Of course, other than double-cooked pork, charred pork strips was also his favorite dish. Anyway, he was very interested in all kinds of dishes. After returning home, although Jiang Hai had bought the house, it had been empty for a long time, so there was a lot of dust. Therefore, there was no way to live in it directly. They had to clean up first. However, with Jiang Hai's laziness, just him and AI Xiaoxi were definitely not enough. After plugging in the water heater, Jiang Hai called Feng Yunshun, who had already returned, and told her to come over and help clean up the room. "You only thought of me at this time." Jiang Hai and Feng Yunshun were junior high school classmates. When they were in junior high school, except for a few people who pursued the key points, most of them went to school according to the district, especially people like Jiang Hai who didn't study well. Feng Yunshun's home was only about 3 stops away from Jiang Hai's home. After receiving a call from Jiang Hai, she came directly. 20 minutes later, the water in the water heater was hot, and Feng Yunshun also came. "Sister Chun, you are the main force." Looking at Feng Yunshun, AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but say with a smile, "You are happy this time. Jiang Hai accompanied you back home, but this kid can't accompany me back." Looking at the smile on AI Xiaoxi's face, Feng Yunshun rolled her eyes at Jiang Hai and then said to AI Xiaoxi, "Why?" Hearing Feng Yunshun say this, AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but ask curiously, "What do you think?" But her words only got a supercilious look from Feng Yunshun. Hearing her words, AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but stick out her tongue. Feng Yunshun's home was indeed a little different. Ignoring the slow AI Xiaoxi and Jiang Hai who pretended not to hear, Feng Yunshun looked around and found a pair of rubber gloves that Jiang Hai didn't know how long they had been there. She put them on, got some hot water, put a rag on, and helped to clean up. I have to admit that Feng Yunshun does have the genes of a good wife and mother. Whether it's cooking or cleaning up, she does a good job. Jiang Hai and the others came back at noon. In less than 2 hours, the room was cleaned up. After throwing the dusty sheets into the automatic washing machine and starting to wash them, other things have been done. "Oh, I'm so tired. When I come back home, I'm like a little princess. My mother does everything, but when I come to your place, I become an old maid. Do you think it's easy for me?" After cleaning up, Feng Yunshun lay directly on the sofa and complained to Jiang Hai, while AI Xiaoxi smiled and leaned over to her legs, helping her massage them. At the same time, Jiang Hai was also a little embarrassed. He stroked her head and massaged her shoulders. Although her mouth was a little dirty, Feng Yunshun still liked helping Jiang Hai do the housework, especially when Jiang Hai and AI Xiaoxi massaged her together. The physical comfort was not as good as the comfort in her heart. "What do you want to eat tonight? Our Yunshun is so tired. I will treat tonight. Let's go for a big meal. After massaging for a while, Jiang Hai looked at the time. Unknowingly, it was almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Although it was not time to eat, they could already order what they wanted to eat so that they could eat at that time. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Feng Yunxun and AI Xiaoxi on the other side both remembered. Before he mentioned it, they didn't pay attention. Now that Jiang Hai mentioned it, they were really hungry. So, they started to think about what to eat. To be honest, there were not many specialties in Bing City's cuisine. There were all kinds of cuisines in Bing City. But if you want something special, it was still not good enough. For example, seafood. Many people in Bing City liked to eat seafood. Most of the seafood was imported from Dan City in the province. It tasted good and was not expensive. It was cheaper than the inland regions, but it was more expensive than the coastal regions. Other than seafood, the only food that could be considered delicious was fish. Black Dragon Province's fish was produced in Bing City. Because of the closure of the river during winter, the fish in other places could only grow for half a year. That was why the fish in Bing City could only grow for half a year. That was why the fish in Bing City was very firm and elastic. This was also the reason why tourists from other places would go to Bing City to eat fish. But Jiang Hai and AI Xiaoxi were not lacking in seafood. After all, they had just returned from the coastal regions. When Jiang Hai was in Winthrop, he had treated seafood as his livelihood. So, they were not lacking in seafood. They had just eaten double-cooked pork in the afternoon, and Jiang Hai did not like to eat at night. So, they were in a dilemma. After thinking for a while, Jiang Hai suddenly clapped his hands and said to the two women, "Why don't we go back to eat?" Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the two women were stunned. Back to eat? They did not eat much, but there were many such restaurants in Bing City. Back to Bing City was Muslim cuisine. They did not serve pork. They mainly served beef and mutton. Most of the dishes were mutton. For example, the famous grilled mutton strips, boiled stomach, grilled mutton face, fried mirror, mutton eyes, mutton giblets soup, etc. Speaking of which, the roots of Chinese Muslim cuisine were in the vicinity of Shaanxi. There were many people who believed in this religion. It had to be popularized here. This ethnic minority had actually developed from a religion. In a previous dynasty, the previous government did not allow any nationalistic sentiments. Everyone was Chinese, regardless of ethnic group. It was a true integration of ethnic groups, but you were allowed to believe in this religion. After the establishment of the current imperial court, in order to appease these people, the current law was introduced. Of course, these things could not be said carelessly. Carelessly talking about it would cause them to be banned. So, it was just a simple introduction. Jiang Hai did not have any thoughts about other ethnic groups. He was just an ordinary Muslim. There was no psychological difference. And he also liked to eat this cuisine. After all, beef was better than pork. Okay. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Feng Yunxun thought for a while and said, she had not eaten it for a while. Seeing that Feng Yunxun and Jiang Hai both agreed, AI Xiaoxi, who had not eaten before, could only agree. Okay, then let's rest for a while and eat at 5 o'clock. Hearing that AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunxun both agreed, Jiang Hai also smiled and confirmed the time to eat. Then Jiang Hai carried Feng Yunxun up and lay on the sofa with her. Feeling the smell of Jiang Hai's body and Jiang Hai's strong body, Feng Yunxun's face slowly turned red. AI Xiaoxi looked at Jiang Hai and Feng Yunxun and couldn't help but hit them. Now was not the time to be tired of it. They still had to go out to eat later. If they started fighting now, who knows when they would be able to eat. In Bing City, it was different from other big cities. After 8:30 p.m., 90% of the restaurants would be closed, except for some restaurants that were open all night or some big hotels. However, most of the snack bars would be closed. They wouldn't be open until very late, like in the imperial capital, Shanghai, Chengdu, Fog City, and other places. If Jiang Hai and Feng Yunxun started fighting now, it was really hard to say when it would be over. Feeling AI Xiaoxi's intention, Jiang Hai and Feng Yunxun both smiled and didn't take any further action. They just lay there hugging each other. AI Xiaoxi also came over at this time and leaned on Jiang Hai's body. The three of them leaned on the sofa, listening to each other's heartbeat and the constant whirring sound of the washing machine. Old driver, wait for me. I'm going to Kuan City. Old driver, wait for me. I am going to the provincial capital. Just when the three of them were being intimate, suddenly a strange song came from Jiang Hai's mobile phone. Well, this was Jiang Hai's ringtone that he had recently changed. This was a song that Jiang Hai heard in AI Xiaoyi's new car. He had to admit that it was a magical song. Picking up the phone, Jiang Hai glanced at it. The caller was none other than Qi Li. Hello, Qi Li, what's the matter? Seeing that it was Qi Li, Jiang Hai's mood was not as conflicted as before, and he picked it up directly. Chapter 587. Hello. Are you back in Bing City now? After picking up the phone, she found that Jiang Hai's voice was very enthusiastic. Qi Li was stunned for a moment, but after a moment, she felt a little happy in her heart. It seems that her efforts will be rewarded. Then she asked Jiang Hai, "Well, I'm back. I just finished cleaning up the room." Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also said to her, "Oh, I see. Then you open the door. I'm downstairs. I'll go up immediately." Hearing that Jiang Hai was indeed in Bing City, Qi Li was relieved and said to Jiang Hai. When he heard her words, Jiang Hai was stunned. Downstairs? What the hell? But at this time, Qi Li had already hung up the phone. Because they were very close to Jiang Hai's phone, AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yinshan also heard the content of the phone call clearly. The three of them looked at each other and couldn't help but feel a little confused. Cough. Let's take a look. After speaking to the two women, Jiang Hai sat up from the pile of fragrant meat, walked to the door, and opened the security door. Sure enough, as soon as the security door opened, he heard the sound of high heels clicking on the floor in the corridor. As the sound of high heels slowly approached, Qi Li's unchanging office lady outfit appeared in front of Jiang Hai. "You are really here?" Seeing Jiang Hai open the door, Qi Li couldn't help but show a smile on her face. Then she quickly walked upstairs, but when she walked to the door, she found that there was more than one person in Jiang Hai's room. In addition to him, AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yinshan were also there. When she saw them, Qi Li's face couldn't help but stiffen. "You are also here." Looking at the two people in the room, Qi Li reluctantly smiled and said to them, "Come in and talk. What are you standing here for?" Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai didn't feel anything bad. He directly brought her a pair of slippers and let her in. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li's body trembled for no reason. This seemed to be the first time Jiang Hai took the initiative to invite her to his private space. Although there were two other women in this space, this was indeed the first time. Qi Li was usually full of the aura of a queen. However, she had always remembered these small details clearly. She didn't hesitate for too long in the face of Jiang Hai's invitation. She directly took off her pair of black high heels and stepped on Jiang Hai's slippers for the first time as she walked in. When she walked in, Jiang Hai didn't feel anything, but the competition between the three women had already begun. "Did you guys come back together? When did you guys come back?" Sitting on the sofa, Qi Li seemed to ask casually. "I came back early. Jiang Hai and Xiaoxi just came back today." Hearing Qi Li's words, Feng Yinshan glanced at AI Xiaoxi, who was already a little confused, and said with a smile, she was going to rely on AI Xiaoxi to compete with Qi Li. But now it seems that AI Xiaoxi is still far away. She can only stand up to Qi Li as the mistress. "Oh, you just arrived today? You cleaned up the room as soon as you arrived. You are really amazing." Hearing Feng Yinshan's words, Qi Li also nodded, and then said a few words to Feng Yinshan. Listening to their words, no matter how stupid Jiang Hai was, he could tell that the atmosphere was not very good, but he was still a little confused about what they were talking about. For the first time, he felt that he did something wrong. "By the way, Jiang Hai, come home with me later. You didn't come back during the Mid-Autumn Festival, and my mom has been asking. Since you came back on the 11th, you should go for a meal." Suddenly, Qi Li changed the topic and looked at Jiang Hai and said to him. Hearing that Qi Li suddenly changed the topic to him, Jiang Hai was also stunned. Then he also analyzed the meaning of Qi Li's words in his mind. It should be that she already knew that he and AI Xiaoxi went to the Mid-Autumn Festival. Since this had already happened, it was nothing. But today, he had to go to her house for dinner. After thinking it through, Jiang Hai glanced at AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yinshan with some difficulty. If Jiang Hai went, these two girls definitely couldn't go, but they just said that they were going to eat halal. Jiang Hai really didn't have the habit of standing others up. It's okay, we could just fool them at home. Remember to come back early tonight. Hearing Qi Li's words and Jiang Hai's gaze, AI Xiaoxi was more sensible. She also knew that Jiang Hai didn't belong to her alone. Since he had accompanied her for so many days, there was nothing wrong with accompanying Qi Li to deal with her mother now. Jiang Hai also told her about Qi Li, although what Qi Li did that year was really wrong. But after all, Jiang Hai owed her a debt. At this time, AI Xiaoxi had already put herself in the position of Jiang Hai's girlfriend and began to look at the problem from Jiang Hai's perspective. Definitely. Hearing that AI Xiaoxi relented, Jiang Hai also breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't make it difficult for him. Just as he was about to agree, Qi Li spoke before him. He probably won't come back tonight. You guys should go to bed early. It's not easy to go to my mother's place. It's impossible for me to stay there, but Jiang Hai came back to stay. After all, he is still my husband now. Directly interrupting Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li said with a serious face. Hearing Qi Li's words, AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but be speechless. Shouldn't everyone take a step back in this matter? But this Qi Li had been taking a step back when facing Jiang Hai, but when facing them, this strong woman didn't have a trace of mercy. They were looking at her, and she was also looking at them. Cough. Let's see how the situation goes. Okay, Qi Li, let's go. This time, Jiang Hai realized that there was no other way. 3 women, 6 pairs of eyes. The gazes were like a high-voltage current, constantly intersecting in front of Jiang Hai. At the critical moment, Jiang Hai's courage once again played an important role. After awkwardly nodding apologetically to AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yinshan, he said to Qi Li, since he had agreed to go, Jiang Hai couldn't pretend that this didn't happen. Then let's go. Hearing that Jiang Hai was going to leave, Qi Li was like a general who had won a battle. She stood up, glanced at Feng Yinshan and AI Xiaoxi, and walked towards the door. Jiang Hai also put on his coat, hugged the 2 girls, and walked out with Qi Li. When the door was closed, AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but curl her lips. There's no other way. We are born weaker than that woman, but I believe that we can definitely win against that guy, and firmly snatched Jiang Hai in her hands. Looking at AI Xiaoxi's appearance, Feng Yinshan was very relaxed. She lay back on the sofa and then said to AI Xiaoxi. Hearing her words, AI Xiaoxi couldn't help but smile. This sister Chun is always so optimistic. This kind of mentality is really good. Sometimes she thinks a lot. Okay, let's not care about her. What shall we eat tonight? Shaking her hair, AI Xiaoxi threw this thought out of her mind, then sat opposite Feng Yinshan and said to Feng Yinshan, sometimes she thinks too much. Now that she has finally made up her mind to face her relationship with Jiang Hai, then she shouldn't be affected by these things. It's useful to laugh happily now. She must laugh happily in the end. This is the real victory. Why don't we order a meal? How long have you not eaten hamburgers? After thinking for a while, Feng Yinshan suddenly said, oh, it seems to have been a long time. In their line of work, these high-calorie things are absolutely not to be touched. Although later, Jiang Hai sent beef and the like, which made their bodies better. Eating these foods won't make them fat. But the habits formed in the past are not so easy to change. Moreover, not eating these things is also good for the body. Then let's do it. Seeing that AI Xiaoxi seemed to be very interested, Feng Yinshan picked up the phone and made a call. At this time, Jiang Hai didn't know what these 2 girls were going to eat at home. In fact, even if he knew, he wouldn't care. After coming downstairs with Qi Li, Jiang Hai was still thinking about what to do in the future. To be honest, Jiang Hai's character is really very troublesome. When he encounters something, he will always be a little indecisive. And in the face of temptation, he can't control himself, just like Aphrodite. A few months ago, Jiang Hai jumped high and said, although he is not a gentleman, he won't take advantage of others. A rabbit doesn't eat the grass near its burrow, blah 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 blah. But now, The other party directly pounced on him, and Jiang Hai was scared. Such a person can't survive more than 3 episodes in a TV series. Now, on one side is Qi Li, who he is about to solve the knot in his heart, and on the other side is Feng Yunxin and AI Xiaoxi. Jiang Hai is also a little tangled. Don't worry, if you really want to come back tonight, then come back. Sitting in the car, looking at Jiang Hai's constipated expression, Qi Li's heart was a little lost, but she still said to Jiang Hai, "Forget it, I'll listen to you tonight, but tomorrow you have to go out with us." Shaking his head, Jiang Hai threw such thoughts out of his mind, then looked at Qi Li and said with a smile, "I have to go together?" Listening to Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li couldn't help but be a little confused. "Is this okay?" "Of course, you have to come together. Tomorrow, the 4 of us will go out and play together." "Well, let me think about what I want to play. Let's go to the amusement park." Looking at Qi Li's surprised and puzzled eyes, Jiang Hai said with certainty, and then he began to arrange where to go tomorrow. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li couldn't help but chuckle. "Hey, are you very young now? Do you want to go to the amusement park?" Hearing Jiang Hai mention this place, Qi Li couldn't help but ask, "Then where do you think we should go if we don't go to the amusement park?" Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai shrugged. "Well, let's go to the amusement park." After thinking about it, Qi Li really didn't know where the 4 of them would go together, so she listened to Jiang Hai. Chapter 588, saying that it was an amusement park brought the relationship between the 2 of them closer. It made the atmosphere in the car less lifeless. Since they had opened the topic, Qi Li also began to ask Jiang Hai about Jiang Hai's manor in the United States. In her opinion, Jiang Hai's manor was very important. Not only was it Jiang Hai's property, but it was also the main source of meat for her 4 restaurants. These were all very important. "There's no problem with the manor. I've already bought the cattle for next year. 15,000 bulls and 4,000 calves. Next year, I can sell about 2,000 calves, which adds up to 17,000 bulls. I've reserved 1,000 bulls for you. If it's not enough, you can tell me, and I'll squeeze out some more for you." Hearing Qi Li ask about the cattle, Jiang Hai thought for a moment and said to Qi Li. In fact, when Jiang Hai kept the bulls, he was still dissatisfied with Qi Li. But because of AI Xiaoxi's matter, Jiang Hai's hostility towards Qi Li suddenly lessened a lot. However, he had already reserved 1,000 cows. But if it wasn't enough, Jiang Hai could make some more. "Okay, 1,000 bulls is enough. After all, I'm not going to open a branch. But in addition to beef, our restaurant's high-end goods are still lacking. I'm afraid that sooner or later, people will get tired of eating beef." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li couldn't help but say with some hesitation. But Jiang Hai chuckled when he heard her words. "I have a lot of high-end goods. Lobsters, all more than 30 catties, especially long sea cucumbers, double-headed abalones. By next year, the fish I raise will be almost ready to be produced. There's salmon, grouper, dragon crab, king crab, 9-joint shrimp, and so on. There's also tuna. Around July next year, there should also be a batch of Yangtze River grenadier fish and large yellow croaker fish." As soon as he heard Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also calculated the high-end goods in his fishery. But after calculating, Jiang Hai was really stunned. There were really a lot of high-end goods in his fishery. Although Jiang Hai's fish are said to be farmed, except for the small seedlings, it can be said that these fish all imitate natural growth. Take the salmon, for example. Jiang Hai's salmon is a 3-year Atlantic salmon. In fact, the salmon we traditionally talk about refers to the Atlantic salmon. There is no salmon in the Pacific Ocean. 90% of the salmon in Asia is actually chum salmon. This fish looks almost the same as salmon. The only difference is that chum salmon has small black spots on its dorsal fin, but salmon only has them on its body, not on its dorsal fin. Therefore, there were many businesses that called salmon XX salmon, such as red salmon and so on. But the problem is that it is not salmon just because you call it salmon. The difference is actually quite big. But there are too few people who know this, and the biggest exporter of salmon is Norway. In the early days, Norway's salmon couldn't be sold. This was because the main exporting country, Japan, ate sashimi. In the early days, salmon had to be cooked. They didn't eat raw salmon. Later on, Norway exported salmon to Japan. Gradually, they started to eat raw salmon. The most popular time was in the 1980s. Norway exported a large amount of seafood to Japan. After implementing the Japan Plan for 15 years, Japan's habit of eating raw salmon was completely changed. Later, huaxia also became the main force of eating salmon. But this fish is far from being a threat, but it is really not easy to catch it. Its living range is very limited, and it only lives in the Atlantic Ocean. After all, it is difficult to fool people who understand the meaning of chum salmon. It is precisely because of this that now in the Pacific Ocean, huaxia, Japan, and South Korea are eating farmed salmon. But generally, farmed salmon can't eat wild shrimp and plankton, so its meat is white. If you want to turn it red, you need to feed it artificial astaxanthin. But if you feed it too much, it will become red. If you feed it too little, it won't be sold at high price. So it is still very complicated. Moreover, if you feed it too much, Zhanghai doesn't know whether it is harmful to the human body. But he doesn't need to feed it anyway, because there are a lot of small shrimps in his fish farm. Because Zhanghai's seaweeds absorb spiritual energy, just like the pasture in Zhanghai's manor. They naturally have spiritual energy. This spiritual energy attracts a large number of plankton that feed on these seaweeds. And these plankton attract a large number of creatures that feed on these things. In addition to the small squid and small octopus that Zhanghai raises, Zhanghai's fish farm has a large number of Arctic sweet shrimps. These shrimps swim here on their own. The number is unusually large, forming the bottom of the biological chain. At least, the fish in Zhanghai's fish farm are difficult to finish. The salmon was already 3 years old when they bought it, so it wasn't a problem for them to eat these things. Recently, Zhanghai's salmon and the like have grown quite big. It is estimated that it will not be a problem to sell them next year. Of course, Zhanghai can also choose to let these fish swim back to the river he built to lay eggs, so that he can get more salmon. But there is a problem, that is, the salmon will die after laying eggs, then it can't be sold at a high price. So this is a trade-off problem, but Zhanghai believes that Edward Anderson and the others will solve it. I didn't expect you to have so many good things. It seems that after a while, I will have to check again to see what could be used in my restaurant. Hearing that there are so many good things in Zhanghai's fish farm, Qili couldn't help but be stunned. She didn't know that there are so many fun things in Zhanghai's manor. Lobster, abalone, sea cucumber, king crab, tuna, salmon grouper, dragon crab, plus the beef provided by Zhanghai. All of a sudden, Qili found that it was just around the corner for her to dominate the high-level catering industry in the capital. If you want to go, you are welcome at any time. Hearing her words, Zhanghai smiled. Although Qili may be a little embarrassed when she sees Aphrodite and the others, if she wants to go, then Zhanghai won't mind. Okay, but it's already November now. There is nothing fun to go there. When will you fish? Hearing what Zhanghai said, Qili also seriously thought about it. In fact, to be honest, she wants to go with Zhanghai now. But the problem is that she can't, because the chief family still depends on her to helm it. Now that she goes to Zhanghai, it means that she has to give up control of the chief family, which she can't agree to. Huaxia people and foreigners have a little essential difference. That is the desire to control. For example, if a foreigner establishes a company, shares or something, they must firmly hold it in their hands. But for the operation and management of the company, they are more inclined to find a professional manager or someone they cultivated themselves, give him a certain proportion of dividends, tie this person to their own chariot, and let him manage the company. For example, Walton, who is very familiar with Zhanghai, is now the Walton family's Walmart, managed by an outsider. But the people in China are different. When a person in China establishes a company, he must be in charge of it himself. When his control is over, even if his son or daughter is a waste, a prodigal, or a moron, this company will definitely be passed on to his child. He will not find a manager and give out some of his due dividends. More than 95% of the enterprises in China are all family businesses, and the chief family is the same. If he wants her to give up, she will think about it later. At least for now, it is impossible. Probably in March, April, or May where I am. You have to ask my fisherman for the specific time. Last year, when Jiang Hai was raising fish, he had heard that it would take at least a year to raise these fishes. If 1 year wasn't too long, then it would take 2 years. However, they didn't think that Jiang Hai had something to do with spiritual qi. So, these fish raised for half a year are not smaller than the fish raised for 1.5 years by others. If they are raised for another half a year, it will be almost the same as the fish raised for 2 or 3 years by others. When the time comes, there will be no problem at all. Okay, I will call you in advance when the time comes. I will definitely go when the fish are released. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li said seriously. At this time, the car slowly entered Qi Li's neighborhood. After parking the car in front of Lu Li's villa, Jiang Hai also got out of the car with some things. These things are the beef, in his manner. He sent it to Fu Yuan through express delivery, and Fu Yuan brought it to him today. He left some at home, preparing to eat it with Feng Yinxin and Ai Xiaoxi in the next few days. The rest is brought to Qi Li's mother. After all, she is his official mother-in-law in name. When Jiang Hai and Qi Li walked into the villa, they found that the people in the villa are busy. The servants in the villa, as well as Qi Li's mother, are cleaning up the dishes and carrying the dishes. It is very lively. Hey, Xiao Jiang, you are back. Take a seat, it's time to eat. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Qi Li's mother saw Jiang Hai immediately, and then said to Jiang Hai warmly, especially when she saw the beef that Jiang Hai brought over, her eyes could not help but shine. She walked quickly to Jiang Hai and took the beef directly with a smile on her face. In fact, during the new year, Jiang Hai gave her a lot of beef, but at that time, Qi Li's mother did not know the price of the beef. She thought that Jiang Hai was just showing his filial piety, so she did not care about it. Later on, after eating Jiang Hai's beef, she felt that it tasted very good, so she called Qi Li and asked where Jiang Hai bought his beef. At that time, she learned from Qi Li that Jiang Hai's beef could not be bought outside. Chapter 589. To be honest, Qi Li's mother was not willing to eat beef that cost more than 2,000 yuan per kilogram. If it weren't for the fact that her family was really rich, she might have sent the beef to Qi Li and let her sell it. But at this time, she also knew that her son-in-law, who seemed to be a little honest and had no other abilities, had grown up. Unknowingly, she had already grown up. Originally, she felt a little apologetic about letting her daughter marry Jiang Hai, because at that time, she also felt that Jiang Hai was not worthy of her daughter. Speaking of Jiang Hai, a year ago, Jiang Hai did not seem to have any advantages. Although he was not short, he was not very tall either. His appearance was average, and he did not encounter any earth-shattering events, nor did he have any money, nor did he know how to talk, nor did he cause any trouble. He had no potential to speak of. What could an unemployed person who graduated from a third-rate university have? The only advantage was that Jiang Hai was quite honest, and she knew him well. She pulled him out at the critical moment to shut those people's mouths. Originally, she also thought that if Qi Li could live with Jiang Hai, she would let her live with Jiang Hai. If not, she would just divorce him. This could be seen from the fact that Jiang Hai had come to her place during the new year, and her attitude wasn't very lively. Generally speaking, the more a mother-in-law looked at her son-in-law, the happier she would be, unless the mother-in-law really did not like the son-in-law. But now it seemed that Jiang Hai was really hiding something. According to Qi Li, the money he earned from selling beef for a year was not lower than the total value of the Qi group. This was just the money he earned from selling beef for a year. What about next year? The year after that? It was scary to think about it. In addition, Jiang Hai provided her with the beef, so Qi Li's mother liked him more and more. Hey Mom, this is some beef from my manor. If you like it, just tell me and I'll send it to you. Seeing Qi Li's mother being so enthusiastic about his beef, Jiang Hai also smiled. It seemed that his mother-in-law was slowly changing. After a few simple greetings, Jiang Hai and Qi Li sat at the dining table. The dining table was not small, but there were only 3 people sitting at it: Jiang Hai, Qi Li, and Qi Li's mother. Other than them, there was no one else, but the table was full of dishes. Joey, come and sit with us. Seeing that all the dishes were served, the girl that Jiang Hai had seen twice seemed to be called Zheng Xiuyi. She nodded and was about to leave, but before she could leave, she was stopped by Qi Li's mother. "Auntie, it's better not. Let's go to the kitchen and have a bite." Hearing Qi Li's mother's words, the girl named Zheng Xiuyi couldn't help but feel a little conflicted. As mentioned before, Zheng Xiuyi's father was very close to Qi Li's father. Later, there was an accident, and her father passed away. Then, the Qi family brought her home and raised her as their own daughter. However, perhaps because of the shock, this girl's reaction was slow and she was very stubborn. After coming here, she thought that she couldn't live here for free. She had to be a servant and take care of the Qi family. It seemed that she liked this job very much. Of course, no one in the Qi family really treated her as a servant. Although she was wearing servant's clothes, for Qi Li, she was still her sister. "Well, let's eat together. You haven't eaten with your brother-in-law yet." Qi Li stood up and pulled Zheng Xiuyi to sit beside her. She then said to Zheng Xiuyi, Zheng Xiuyi seemed to be in a dilemma. Hearing Qi Li's words, the girl who still had some resistance couldn't help but feel a little confused. Then, she said slowly. Looking at her appearance, Jiang Hai also smiled. "This girl is really quite interesting. Okay, let's eat. If we don't eat, the food will get cold. Here is Jiang Hai's beef. This is very rare." Looking at the happy scene in front of her, Qi Li's mother also said with a smile. Then, she motioned for everyone to start eating. Jiang Hai didn't stand on ceremony. After Qi Li's mother started eating, Jiang Hai also picked up some food to eat. As for Qi Li and Zheng Xiuyi, they were also eating and chatting. The meal was still very harmonious. Unknowingly, the meal was finished. However, there were still a lot of dishes left. Naturally, these were cleaned up by the servants. Jiang Hai and the other three sat in the living room. Zheng Xiuyi made a pot of tea. Jiang Hai and the others watched TV, drank tea, and chatted at the same time. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. In Ice City, in October, the sky turned dark very early. To be exact, the sky turned dark very early all year round. During the hottest period of summer, the longest day could only last until 8 o'clock in the evening. It was completely different from the central and western Huaxia, where the sky was still bright after 9 o'clock in the evening. In October, the sky turned dark even earlier. After 7 o'clock, it was already very dark outside. Therefore, there was really no concept of time. Unknowingly, it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. "Xiao Jiang just came back today, right? Then you must be a little tired. I have already prepared your rooms. You can go to sleep directly later." Glancing at her watch, Qi Li's mother also stood up. She was preparing to go to bed. Old people, especially women like Qi Li's mother, were originally in poor health. Moreover, they were too rich. Therefore, in order to avoid being targeted, she usually lived in seclusion. Things like square dancing would never happen to her. After all, the Qi group's assets were tens of billions. Wealth moved people's hearts. Who knew if there were good people outside? What if she was kidnapped by others? Therefore, Qi Li's mother went to bed very early. Of course, she also woke up very early. However, she only walked around the courtyard or the neighborhood. She also needed someone to accompany her. Basically, it was Zheng Xiuyi who accompanied her to walk around. Okay. Hearing Qi Li's mother's words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but be stunned for a moment because he still wanted to go back now. However, after his waist was poked by Qi Li, Jiang Hai couldn't help but stand up. While watching Qi Li's mother return to her room, he also responded awkwardly. After watching Qi Li's mother close the door, Jiang Hai looked at Qi Li helplessly. "What are you looking at? Let's go to bed." Seeing Jiang Hai's gaze, Qi Li's face couldn't help but blush a little, but she was still tough. She glanced at Jiang Hai, took the initiative to hold Jiang Hai's arm, and led Jiang Hai to the second floor. The largest bedroom on the second floor was Jiang Hai and Qi Li's home here. Unfortunately, they had never lived here once. Today was an exception. Walking into this room, the first thing that caught Jiang Hai's eyes was a big bed. There was a huge red bedsheet on top of the big bed. The middle of the bedsheet was drawn into a heart shape. There was a double happiness symbol rusted inside, and there was a mandarin duck pattern below. Needless to say, it was obvious that this was only used for weddings. Looking at this big bed, Jiang Hai couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. This scene was a bit familiar. However, in the original plot, Chili should say to him coldly, "You go to sleep." Then she would go next door to sleep for the night. However, the current script was clearly different from the original. Chili didn't directly leave Jiang Hai here, nor did she leave. Instead, she walked into the room before Jiang Hai. In front of Jiang Hai, she didn't care about her image and directly lay on the bed. Jiang Hai even saw the looming black under her skirt. Seeing this scene, Jiang Hai couldn't help but turn his face to the side, then sat on a chair in the room and turned on the TV. Seeing Jiang Hai's appearance, Chili also turned around on the bed and looked at Jiang Hai. "Aren't you going to take a shower first?" Seeing that Jiang Hai was staring at the TV while glancing at her from time to time, Chili smiled and said to him. Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai also nodded and walked into the bathroom next to him. But after going in, he found that he didn't have any clothes to change into. The jacket is fine, but what about the underwear? He didn't put any clothes here. If he washed this thing now, what would he wear after washing it? But if he didn't wash it, if he didn't want to wash it, then he wouldn't wash it. After struggling for a while, Jiang Hai took a shower in the big bathroom. It was still very simple for a man to take a shower. He washed his hair with the hair foam, simply wiped his body, and then rinsed it. At least, Jiang Hai took a shower like this. In less than 10 minutes, Jiang Hai had already come out, but when he came out, he found that Chi Li had already changed her clothes. At this time, Chi Li had already changed from the almost unchanging office lady clothes and changed into pink pajamas. But this pajamas seemed to be a little too small. Not only was there a huge V-shape on the top, but the bottom of the pajamas only covered the bottom. The length of the hem barely covered her underwear. Her two straight, slender long legs were exposed in front of Jiang Hai. Coupled with Chi Li's pretty good looks, Jiang Hai once again shifted his gaze. Seeing Jiang Hai coming out, Chi Li greeted him with a smile and looked at Jiang Hai and said, "You are done showering." "Ah, you take a shower?" When Jiang Hai heard Chi Li's words, he didn't dare to look at her now. Jiang Hai bypassed Chi Li and went to the sofa next to him. He didn't dare to sit on the bed, so he just watched TV. Chi Li looked at Jiang Hai's reaction and chuckled. She walked into the bathroom and hummed while taking a shower. Although Jiang Hai's eyes were watching TV, his ears heard Chi Li's humming and the sound of water. To be honest, it was quite torturous, but fortunately, Chi Li didn't take too long. About 20 minutes later, she came out of the bathroom. Jiang Hai glanced at her unconsciously and couldn't help but feel his heart beating faster. At this time, although Chi Li was still wearing pajamas, it was obvious that she had removed the vest and underpants that were supposed to be under the pajamas. This scene was a bit fierce. Chapter 590. Is there anything good on TV? Looking at Jiang Hai's slightly sluggish eyes, Chi Li slowly walked over. While wiping the water droplets on her hair, she climbed onto the bed casually. Under Jiang Hai's gaze, she sat cross-legged and looked at the TV in the distance. At this time, under Jiang Hai's gaze, Chi Li's 2 points and the forest below were completely visible, but she didn't seem to care at all. I don't think so. To be honest, Jiang Hai really didn't have any intention of watching TV at this time. He just turned on the TV casually because he didn't know what to do. If there's nothing good to watch, then let's sleep. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chi Li tilted her head and looked at Jiang Hai with a smile. Hearing what she said, Jiang Hai also nodded. "Come up and sleep." Seeing Jiang Hai nod, Chi Li also patted the position next to her and said to Jiang Hai, "Forget it. I'll just sleep on the sofa for a night." Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai gently pushed his glasses and took a deep breath. It was better to be calm at this time. "Sleep on the sofa? Are you afraid that I will eat you? Really, you are not cute at all. You are my husband, do you know that?" Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chi Li suddenly said to Jiang Hai. Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but be speechless. And The most important thing is if my mother knows that you're sleeping on the sofa, wouldn't we be exposed? After hesitating, Chili looked at Jiang Hai and said faintly. After that, she lowered her head. She didn't say such words. Well, okay. Looking at Chi Li's appearance, Jiang Hai's head was also a little confused. He didn't think about it. He was sleeping on the sofa. How could Chi Li's mother know? But at this time, there was no such thought in his mind. Inexplicably, he turned off the TV and then lay on the side of the big bed with his clothes on. Do you sleep with your clothes on? Leaning her head next to Jiang Hai's ear, Chi Li hugged Jiang Hai from behind and then whispered in his ear. Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai didn't know what to say. I heard that sleeping in level 1 is very good for a person's body, but I used to live alone. I was really afraid that if something happened, I wouldn't have a place to escape. But now, I have you by my side, so I'll give it a try. Seeing that Jiang Hai didn't speak, Chi Li whispered in a low voice. Are you really ready? To be honest, if a woman threw herself into his arms like this, Jiang Hai would definitely do it first, but the woman behind him was Chi Li, so Jiang Hai had to suppress this thought. After taking a deep breath and calming down the anxiety in his heart, Jiang Hai said to Chi Li, "What is there to prepare for? I am your wife, you're my husband. Isn't it normal to do this?" Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chi Li hugged Jiang Hai even tighter because she could hear that Jiang Hai was still hesitating. Feeling Chi Li's movement behind him, Jiang Hai hesitated for a moment before saying to Chi Li, "To tell you the truth, I am indebted to your Chi family. I have never denied this point. After all, you extended a helping hand when I needed it the most. If the Chi family has any orders, as long as I can do it, I will definitely help. As for me, I admit I originally had a very good impression of you." Feeling Chi Li's movement behind him, Jiang Hai hesitated for a moment before speaking to Chi Li. Originally, when Chi Li heard Jiang Hai say that he was just grateful to the Chi family, her body trembled for no reason. But after hearing the following words, she hugged Jiang Hai even tighter. If, and I'm saying if we could live together like an ordinary husband and wife, maybe we wouldn't be like today. Of course, that's not very possible. After all, back then, I really wasn't worthy of your attention. Feeling Chi Li's movement, Jiang Hai sighed. He knew what level he was at back then. Why would Chi Li like him? Just like what Chi Li's mother said, Jiang Hai was more than a year ago. He was not handsome, his family background was not good, he had no potential, and he did not know how to speak well. If such a man had found an ordinary woman to marry and have children with, his life would have passed. However, he had married Chi Li, the daughter of heaven. Not to mention Chi Li, anyone would think that the two were actually not a match. It was that simple. Cinderella could marry a prince, but the stinky hooligan married a princess. This was the most realistic problem. Hearing Jiang Hai's slightly self-deprecating words, Chi Li suddenly hugged Jiang Hai tightly and said seriously, "But now you are not the same as before. Although I don't know why I like you, I am very sure that what I like is not your money, not your bull, but you as a person. If you still have me in your heart, then let's start over. I think you understand what I'm talking about. Feng Yinshun, AI Xiaoxi, I can tell you in addition to them, I actually have other women outside, such as Aphrodite. I cannot give them any status, but I can't leave them alone and start over with you. You can say that I am greedy or that I am a scumbag, but I am indeed a scumbag. In the face of temptation, my resistance is not strong, because I don't know what I am holding on to in my heart." Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai brought this matter to the surface for the first time. Jiang Hai would not give up on these women. This was also a big problem for him to have a serious friendship. If it was more than a year ago, Chi Li and Jiang Hai said, "Let's be together," Jiang Hai would be conflicted, but if something really happened, he would still be wholeheartedly with Chi Li. He could also endure the temptation of the outside world because he was a man with a wife. But now this wife of his was almost non-existent. He already wanted to start a new relationship. Under such circumstances, it was inevitable for him to indulge himself a little. But now that things had already happened, some women could be broken, but some he could not. Because if he was really good to only one woman and turned his back on other women, Then in the eyes of other women, he was also the one who betrayed them. Jiang Hai was unwilling to abandon these people. This was the most troublesome thing. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li's hand, which was originally holding Jiang Hai, could not help but loosen a little. She wanted to reconcile with Jiang Hai. She wanted to be with Jiang Hai. She wanted to give herself to Jiang Hai tonight. But she must think carefully about what Jiang Hai said. Jiang Hai had more than one woman. This was different from breaking up with a mistress. Perhaps at this time, in Jiang Hai's heart, the position of those women was much more important than her. There were no fetters between them. If she really wanted to start a relationship with Jiang Hai, it meant that she had to accept those. Unless she was just playing with Jiang Hai, then it did not matter. But she did not know if she was ready to share Jiang Hai with other women. Just like Ai Xiaoxi, she had always regarded herself as Jiang Hai's legal wife. It seemed that as long as she came back, those snakes, insects, rats, and ants would all run away. But now these snakes, insects, rats, and ants had gone deep into this home, and Jiang Hai had become one with them. If she wanted to find the equality and balance between men and women, it would be a little too presumptuous. Think about it carefully. This is also a problem between us. I'll leave this problem to you to decide. Whether we stay as we are, be friends, or go one step further, it's all up to you. Jiang Hai felt Qi Li's hesitation behind him, so he gently patted her hand, sat up from the bed again, and went to lie down on the sofa. This time, Qi Li did not pull Jiang Hai because she also felt that she really had to think about these things carefully. Jiang Hai was not willing to touch her when he was completely undecided. This was Jiang Hai's promise to her, and also his protection for her, so she really had to think about it carefully. On the other side, Jiang Hai, who came to the sofa, suddenly felt as if he had become a saint. Jiang Hai did not like this kind of saint appearance. Maybe it was because of the previous feelings, or maybe Jiang Hai was really interested in Qi Li. He did not want to do anything excessive in such a situation. Qi Li was different from Aphrodite and the others. Aphrodite and the others originally only wanted to stay by Jiang Hai's side. That was all. She was different from Feng Yinxian. Feng Yinxian had already made it very clear that she wanted to be Jiang Hai's lover on the first day she met Jiang Hai. She was also different from Prawalton and Selena Gomez. The relationship between the three of them was probably just that of friends. They did not think of marrying Jiang Hai, and Jiang Hai did not think of making any promises to them. It was that simple. The only one who was similar to Qi Li was Ai Xiaoxi, but Ai Xiaoxi was just preparing to sell herself at the beginning, just like Jiang Hai in the beginning. She sold herself for money, and the subsequent ideas came later. The story between Jiang Hai and Qi Li was far from simple as it seemed. The bond between them was very deep. Finally, Jiang Hai took a deep breath and fell asleep on the sofa. He took one last look at Qi Li, who was lying on the bed. Chapter 591. Sitting in the car, Jiang Hai moved his arms, but he felt that his whole body was sore. In fact, this was also his own fault. How can his body not be sore after sleeping on the sofa for a night, even if he has 4 times the physical fitness? You just want to do it. There is a bed, but you don't sleep. You sleep on the sofa. You sleep on the bed, so you must do that with me. Looking at Jiang Hai's miserable grin, Qi Li couldn't help but pat him. Looking at Jiang Hai's comment, she was really angry and funny. Aren't you afraid that you can't control yourself? Rolling his eyes at Qi Li, Jiang Hai said snappily. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li's mouth unconsciously raised. Jiang Hai is afraid that he can't control himself. It means that Jiang Hai likes me and is very interested in my body. Otherwise, he won't be unable to control himself. Hearing her laughter, Jiang Hai glanced at her snappily. She's really gloating. Okay, we are almost at your house. Looking at Jiang Hai leaning there, Qi Li said to him. Now Qi Li was driving her family's car. It wasn't a good car, but it wasn't particularly bad. It was a fake SUV from Infiniti QX50. The top version was less than 500,000 yuan. For people like Qi Li, this car was just a car to drive when going out to play, and it couldn't go to places that were too outdoor. This kind of car was the so-called city SUV. Such a car couldn't be sold at a high price in the United States because everyone drove MPVs and sedans in the city. SUVs were driven when they wanted to go outside. Not many people drove such a car in the city. But in Huaxia, this kind of city SUV was still very popular. They liked to drive such a car in the city. Okay. Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also took out his phone and called AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan. After making the call, AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan quickened their steps. When the car stopped downstairs of Jiang Hai's house, AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan were already waiting for Jiang Hai and Qi Li. Seeing the car driving over, the two women opened the back door and got in. When they got in, they couldn't help shivering. It was October in Bing City, and it was indeed cold. It could be said that this was the coldest time in Bing City, as the temperature would drop below 10 degrees Celsius in the morning and evening. Although it was still hot at noon, it was difficult to reach 20 degrees Celsius. It was only 5 or 6 degrees Celsius in the morning and evening. At this time, Bing City's winter was jealous of the heaters south of the Yangtze River. The heaters had not started heating yet. It could be said that the first half of October and the second half of April were the coldest times in Bing City. After this period, it would be much warmer. Feng Yunshan and AI Xiaoxi's physical fitness was good. After all, they had been eating Jiang Hai's beef, but they couldn't stand the cold. Moreover, these two girls were models, so they didn't wear much clothes. After standing downstairs for less than 3 minutes, they were almost freezing. When they got into the car, they kept rubbing their hands and shaking their legs, hoping to warm up. It's so cold. We could just play at home. Why are we going to the amusement park? Looking at Jiang Hai and Qi Li in front, Feng Yunshan said unhappily, "To be honest, this kind of weather was the best time to play at home. This is Jiang Hai's idea. Ask him." Hearing Feng Yunshan's words, Qi Li shrugged her shoulders, indicating that she couldn't help. Huaxia women's nature was to listen to men. Of course, there were a few exceptions. "We haven't been to the amusement park together. Let's go and play." Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai also turned his head and said to the two girls behind him. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the two girls couldn't help but roll their eyes at him. "I've been there with you before. We went there several times when we were in junior high school." Jiang Hai just finished his words. Feng Yunshan had already said, Okay. When they were in junior high school, they did go to the amusement park many times." "She went there with you before?" "No, then I have to go with you." But who would have thought that when Feng Yunshan's voice fell, Qi Li immediately added a sentence. Feng Yunshan and Jiang Hai had been to the amusement park, so she had to go too. "That's right, I want to go too." Well, at this time, AI Xiaoxi also said. Feng Yunshan didn't expect that her words directly smashed her own foot. She rolled her eyes at the two sisters who were not firm in their stance. She could only give in helplessly, 3 votes against 1 vote, and she was not so resistant to going there to play. "Okay, let's go to the amusement park." Seeing that no one had any objections, Jiang Hai smiled and patted the front passenger seat and said to Qi Li. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li also stepped on the accelerator and drove forward. Bing City's economy was not very developed. Based on China's GDP ranking, Bing City was only ranked 27th. It was not considered a first-tier city in China. That's why Bing City did not have any amusement parks like most cities in China. Like Happy Valley, which was common in all cities in China, Bing City did not have any amusement parks. Bing City did not have any amusement parks like Happy Valley. There was only one Bing City amusement park in Bing City, and it was very old. But obviously, this type of amusement park could not attract many customers. But the people in Bing City had no other choice, so they could only go there. The location of this amusement park was quite far from Jiang Hai's house. There were 3 landmark buildings there. In front of them was Bing City's biggest temple, Ji Lu Temple. Next to Ji Lu Temple was Electronics World, which was Bing City's biggest computer installation facility. Behind them was Bing City's amusement park, which Jiang Hai and the rest were going to today. After driving to the amusement park, Jiang Hai and the rest did not say anything. They bought the tickets and entered the amusement park. The weather was getting warmer, and it was November, There were still many people here. Many adults brought their children to the amusement park, and they were having fun. After Jiang Hai and the rest entered the amusement park, Qi Li, Feng Yinshen, and AI Xiaoxi attracted a lot of attention. Basically, when they walked past, they would attract a lot of attention. Qi Li was the type of cool female CEO. Feng Yinshen had the image of a perfect royal sister, while AI Xiaoxi had the image of a young and beautiful girl. As they walked by, they really attracted a lot of attention. Of course, there were also people who tried to talk to them, but when they saw Jiang Hai's height of more than 190 centimeters and his rather sturdy build, most of them withered away. And those who dared to come over were ignored by the four people, embarrassing them to death. After entering the amusement park, the three girls who did not like the amusement park went crazy. Roller coasters, bumper cars, things that were similar to Torrential Rush, and haunted houses. They all went one round. Jiang Hai also had a good time. The best amusement park that Jiang Hai had ever been to was the largest Disneyland in Oakland. But compared to these things abroad, the domestic amusement park was closer to life. Unknowingly, Jiang Hai and the rest played until 1 p.m. The three girls were a little hungry, and Jiang Hai was almost done. Since there was nothing else to play, Jiang Hai waved his hand and went to eat. After the four of them left the amusement park, they were ready to eat. At this time, it was up to Jiang Hai. If it was about other things, Jiang Hai might be very ordinary. For example, ask him where to buy beautiful clothes. Ask him where to find bars and nightclubs. Jiang Hai did not know these things, but if you asked him where to find delicious food, then you asked the right person. Jiang Hai asked the three girls what they wanted to eat, and they decided to go to Central Street to eat buns. The steam buns that Jiang Hai mentioned were called Kaifeng steam buns. It was originally a state-run restaurant. The biggest feature of the so-called state-run restaurant was that the waiters were quite good. If you don't want to eat, you don't have to. They were all paid by the state, just like the current civil servants. Their attitude was quite bad, and the environment was also very ordinary. In the summer, the steamers that were thrown outside would have flies on them. However, the main reason why people came to eat here was because the steam buns here were really delicious. When the buns were popular, people even had to line up at the same table. This restaurant was really good. In Bing City, there were only two restaurants that had the best buns. One was this restaurant, and the other was Gubuli Buns. Of course, some people said that Gubuli buns were not delicious, and this was the truth. However, the stuffing had to be differentiated. The fresh shrimp stuffing in Gubuli's steam buns tasted pretty good, and the steam buns in this restaurant's soup dumplings were pretty good. Most importantly, the restaurant had been converted into a private one, so the sanitary conditions were a lot better. After parking the car here and paying the parking fee, Jiang Hai's group of three walked into the bun shop. Because it was changed to a private business, there was no such thing as sharing tables. The originally simple steam buns were now added with stir-fried dishes. It was more like a restaurant than a simple steam bun shop. After Jiang Hai's group of four sat down, they ordered 4 trays of steam buns and then some dishes. Of course, Jiang Hai's order of double-cooked pork was inevitable. Maybe it was because when Jiang Hai and the others arrived, it was already around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At this time, there were no guests, so the dishes were served quite quickly. Not long after, 4 trays of steamed buns and stir-fried dishes were served. After the steamed buns were served, the 3 girls couldn't wait to pick them up. But when their chopsticks touched them, the steamed buns with very thin skin leaked out. Seeing this scene, the 3 girls couldn't help but look at Jiang Hai. What's going on? Their buns are like this. The skin is very thin, so when you pick it up, you have to pick it up. After you put it into the bowl, you have to cool it first, and then suck out the soup before eating the buns. Otherwise, you'll be scalded. Looking at the gazes of the 3 women, Jiang Hai smiled. Under their gazes, he picked up a steamed bun and put it on the plate that he had already prepared. After blowing on the steamed bun and taking a sip of the soup, he began to eat the steamed bun. When the steamed bun entered his mouth, Jiang Hai couldn't help but nod. Delicious. Chapter 592. Hey, you're here. Opening the door, Huang Yunfei looked at Jiang Hai standing outside the door and said with a smile, "What can I do for you?" Looking at Huang Yunfei, who opened the door, Jiang Hai also came in and looked at the people who had already come here and said to Huang Yunfei with a smile. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei also took a look. Help me pack the candy box first. The balloons and other things are almost finished. Glancing at the room, although it was a mess, everything was almost done. Now Fu Yuan and Xiang Hua are playing with balloons, and they will go downstairs in a while. Now there is still a little trouble in packing the candy, and the manpower is not enough. Okay. After talking to Huang Yunfei, Jiang Hai went to the table over there and greeted Huang Yunfei's mother, who was organizing people to pack the candy box, and began to do it. These candy boxes were ordered from the internet. A few people are responsible for folding the box, a few people are responsible for taking the candy, and a few people are responsible for packing the box and sealing it, then putting it in a circle and tying it up. Now, weddings basically use such candy boxes, and they look good. The ones sent to the car are all big candy boxes for cigarettes. This needs to be packed separately. Now it is packed on the table on the wedding day. Jiang Hai is here. Your wife didn't come back. Looking at Jiang Hai sitting here, Huang Yunfei's mother couldn't help but ask with a smile. Oh, she's back, but she's a little busy today. She'll come back tomorrow. Looking at the smiling Huang Yunfei's mother, Jiang Hai also said with a smile. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei's mother couldn't help but nod. Hey, your wife manages such a big company. It's inevitable that she's busy. You are really lucky to have such a good wife. How many years of hard work do you have? Looking at Jiang Hai, Huang Yunfei's mother couldn't help but say with emotion. Hearing Huang Yunfei's mother's words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but smile awkwardly. He didn't answer this, and he didn't know how to answer. Mom, what are you talking about? Now Jiang Hai's money is not less than his wife's. However, after Huang Yunfei heard his mother's words, he couldn't help but complain. After hearing her son's words, Huang Yunfei's mother couldn't help but look at Jiang Hai with a surprised expression. Then she chuckled and let this topic pass. Jiang Hai and Huang Yunfei used to be neighbors. Not only did the two live in the same community, but they also lived in the same building. Huang Yunfei was 1 year younger than Jiang Hai, but Huang Yunfei's mother and Jiang Hai's parents were high school classmates. Later, they started working in the same factory. However, Huang Yunfei's grandfather's family was somewhat capable. Jiang Hai's parents were just workers, while Huang Yunfei's mother worked in the government. Although she was just an ordinary worker, she was naturally well-treated because she worked in the office all day long. And this person, to put it bluntly, was somewhat snobbish. In the past, when Qi Li's father resigned and went to the capital to make a living, she didn't even let Huang Yunfei and Qi Li play together. Later, when Qi Li's family became powerful, she even went to visit them. She even wanted to let Huang Yunfei and Qi Li date. She was quite ambitious. If Qi Li couldn't, then Qi Li's 2 younger sisters could. But later on, there was no need to think about it. Qi Li's family naturally wouldn't agree, but she never gave up. Until 2 years ago, when Qi Li married Jiang Hai, she finally gave up. But it took her 2 years to accept her current daughter-in-law, and she was still somewhat dissatisfied. Jiang Hai was still very familiar with Huang Yunfei's mother, but had a good relationship with Huang Yunfei, so he selectively ignored this problem. After finishing the gift box, Jiang Hai went to tie up the balloons. I'm sorry, you also know my mother. Recently, she has been going through menopause. Now she speaks without thinking. When tying up balloons outside, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but whisper to Jiang Hai. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai smiled and waved his hand. It's okay. I have known you for more than 20 years. How can I not know what your mother is like? I selectively ignored it. Looking at Huang Yunfei, Jiang Hai smiled casually. To be honest, he didn't care much about this at first. By the way, I just heard you say that your wife is coming tomorrow. Qi Li is back. At this time, Fu Yuan next to him also looked at Jiang Hai and asked with a look of surprise, because he remembered that when Jiang Hai came back, he clearly didn't bring Qi Li. Well, Qi Li is also back tomorrow. It depends on the situation. Maybe Qi Li and I will go, or maybe there will be more people going. After thinking about it, Jiang Hai said with a little embarrassment. After getting along with each other yesterday, although the 3 women didn't get along well, At least in front of Jiang Hai, they were not so hostile. After eating steamed buns yesterday, Jiang Hai and the others strolled around Central Street again. In the evening, after Qi Li sent Jiang Hai and the others home, she went back to her and Jiang Hai's new house to live in. Last year, during the new year, she actually lived there. It was really ironic that after she and Jiang Hai got married, she only lived there for one night, and after Jiang Hai left, she had lived there many times. As for Jiang Hai, he had a good night's sleep last night. This morning, after eating breakfast, he came over to help. As for the people who will go to the wedding tomorrow, Jiang Hai hasn't figured it out yet. According to his idea, if 4 people go together, well, it will be very awkward, but if he leaves others at home, he is somewhat embarrassed. Hey, men become bad when they are rich, they become bad. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but sigh. You have a nerve to say that? Do you think we don't know how messed up you are? Glancing at Huang Yunfei, Jiang Hai gave him a middle finger and then said with a look of contempt. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei shook his head proudly. It's my fault. I'm also a bad man. Haha. By the way, after helping tonight, don't leave. Let's go out and play. Huang Yunfei looked at the people around him and said with a mysterious face. Hearing his words, the men present raised their eyebrows. What? You want to have a bachelor's night? Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Su Wei asked strangely. Flying chess. Don't know why, when Jiang Hai heard bachelor's night, he always thought of flying chess. Flying chess? Tomorrow, I will be a married man. We can't stay up too late at night. Tomorrow morning, we will pick up the bride at 6 o'clock, and we will just take a simple bath at night. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei looked at Jiang Hai with contempt. Bath. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, needless to say, this kid is definitely not going to just take a bath. Although there are many decent bathhouses in Bing City, there are also many not-so-decent bathhouses. In fact, all Huaxia is the same. The average fast food refers to massage, pedicure, hair washing, etc. The better ones are some baths, and the better ones are some entertainment clubs. These are all tacit things that all Hua Xiaomin know. But when he heard what he said, Jiang Hai's heart was a little resistant. Okay, don't talk nonsense. Bachelor's night? Stay chaste for your wife tonight. If you meet the police, tomorrow is your wedding day, and also your divorce day. Jiang Hai patted Huang Yunfei and said with a serious face. TSK, so boring. You are a man with a full stomach who doesn't know the hunger of a hungry man. You have Qi Li and that girl, what's her name again? Oh, by the way, AI Xiaoxi, these 2 girls are the best. You have a good night, but you don't think about us. Hearing that Jiang Hai is not interested in going out to play, Huang Yunfei can't help but say with some jealousy. If his wife is as beautiful as Qi Li or AI Xiaoxi, he will also not be willing to go out. Don't be ridiculous. You're getting married tomorrow. Be honest. When we get to America, all right, I don't think you'll be able to have fun there. Fu Yuan and Su Wei are both single. You should just give up. Looking at Huang Yunfei's expression, Jiang Hai said with a smile. When Fu Yuan and Su Wei heard Jiang Hai say that there is a program in Winthrop, they can't help but raise their eyebrows. Compared to having fun here, they were more interested in Caucasian women and the like. While the group was talking and laughing here, they had already tied up the balloons. Then everyone drove to the venue and looked at the decorations there. There was also the wedding day, which was tomorrow's speech with the MC. After all this was done, the sky was dark. When it was time for dinner, Jiang Hai deliberately called Feng Yunxun and AI Xiaoxi. When Huang Yunfei and the others found out that Jiang Hai was not dragging 2 people, but 3 people, they despised Jiang Hai even more. Especially Feng Yunxun, Xiang Hua, and Fu Yuan knew her. After all, they were all classmates. This is a super beauty. Now that she is with Jiang Hai, it has caused a lot of harm to these married and unmarried people. Feng Yunxun and AI Xiaoxi also met Jiang Hai's brothers in advance. After dinner, Jiang Hai and the others left first. As for whether Huang Yunfei had a bachelor's night, Jiang Hai probably didn't, because halfway through the meal, his father came and said that he came to thank Jiang Hai and the others. He can't go to a bachelor's night with his father, right? Wouldn't his mother and his wife tear them apart? But in any case, this busy day was over. After Jiang Hai, Feng Yinshun, and Ai Xiaoxi returned home, they washed up and went to bed. After all, early in the morning, he still has to help. But before going to bed, he has to figure out who will be going tomorrow. You and Chile go. We don't have a legitimate reason to go. Besides, we have senior brothers. It doesn't matter if you go tomorrow or not. Just when Jiang Hai said this, Feng Yinshun had already said directly. Ai Xiaoxi, who was originally interested in this wedding, also closed her mouth at this time. She knew that Feng Yinshun would not harm her. Chapter 593. Just as Jiang Hai fell asleep, on the big bed in the new room, where Jiang Hai and Qi Li were supposed to be lying together, Qi Li was staring at the ceiling with her eyes wide open, unable to fall asleep. She didn't know what was wrong with her. To be honest, her feelings for Jiang Hai were somewhat indescribable. In the beginning, Qi Li didn't like Jiang Hai. Needless to say, it was clear. However, after a year of settling down, other than using Jiang Hai as a shield, she felt more confused and slightly indebted to him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have wanted Jiang Hai to go to the imperial capital to take charge of some things to prove himself after hearing what others said. Unfortunately, at that time, she found out that Jiang Hai had already gone to the United States. Moreover, Jiang Hai's combination of punches made her a little confused. She didn't know when the slightly shy Jiang Hai in her memory had become a man. Then, Feng Yinshun and her snatched Jiang Hai. At that time, she hadn't fallen in love with Jiang Hai yet. She even felt a little disgusted. The reason why she wanted to snatch Jiang Hai back was just like a little girl's toy being snatched away by someone else. This toy was hers. She didn't have to play with it, but others couldn't touch it. Jiang Hai was her toy at that time. But then, the sky-high price of beef, the perfect seafood. When these mysterious things attracted her to the United States, that night, when Jiang Hai saved her, Jiang Hai's figure was officially imprinted in her heart. Although it was very cliché to say that a hero saving a damsel in distress, the more cliché and melodramatic it was, the more popular it was. Qi Li was a strong existence. When her strength was useless, she was saved by Jiang Hai. Then, her strength turned into love faster and faster. Later, she found a different side of Jiang Hai. Jiang Hai's beef allowed her Qi group to gain a foothold in the imperial capital in an instant and enter the food and beverage industry that she had always wanted to enter. Later, Jiang Hai came back decisively and killed the family. He also had connections with the higher-ups in the country. He made the higher-ups in the country give in and no longer let Qi Li's 4 restaurants pay taxes. He also had connections with the royal family in the Middle East. Women, especially a strong woman like Qi Li, worshipped the strong. Jiang Hai became stronger little by little in a year in front of her. From a man who needed a chance to prove himself with her charity, he became a strong existence now. An existence so powerful that she had to look up to him had appeared in front of her, just like that. And the original curiosity and possessiveness gradually turned into liking, admiration, and love. It was as simple as that. The night before yesterday, Qi Li was really stimulated and took the initiative to want to do something with Jiang Hai. But Jiang Hai's performance made her happy, but also made her hesitate. She was happy because Jiang Hai still had her in his heart. And Jiang Hai could see that she liked him very much and still had feelings for him. These were very important. And she hesitated because of what Jiang Hai said to her. If it was a year ago, she would be Jiang Hai's only one. But now, she gave up on him, and he was no longer her only one. If she wanted Jiang Hai to come back, she might have to accept more than just Jiang Hai alone. This was also one of the most annoying things for her. What should I do? Looking at the ceiling, Qi Li thought with some hesitation. Accept others just like that? Qi Li was unwilling. Give up on Jiang Hai just like that? Her heart would hurt, and she would be even more unwilling. Or should she continue like this? But she was not young anymore. She also had to consider these things. This was a crossroads. Whether it was left, right, or forward, she was at a loss. What to do? This was a problem. Chili didn't know when she fell asleep. When the phone rang, she was still in a half-awake state. When she saw the number on the phone, she couldn't help but wake up a little. Hello, Jiang Hai. Looking at the name on the phone, Chili answered the phone and said to Jiang Hai on the other side of the phone, Hello, I'm downstairs. Pack up and leave. I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. Hearing the voice of Jiang Hai on the other side of the phone, Chili forced herself to wake up. After saying, oh, she got out of bed. A strong woman like her had strong control over her body. If she wanted to wake herself up, she would wake up. If she wanted to make herself excited, she would be excited. After getting up, she took a few deep breaths. She went to the bathroom first. She washed her face, brushed her teeth, and then did her hair. Other women would need 2 hours to get out of the house, but she only needed less than 20 minutes to get out of the house. She had already prepared the clothes she was going to wear today. After putting on the clothes and high heels, she took a small bag and went downstairs. When she took the elevator downstairs, she just saw Jiang Hai yawning in the cold. The hood of his clothes had already been buckled on his head, and his hands were tucked into his sleeves. He was yawning and looking around. When she saw Chili coming downstairs, she couldn't help but brighten up. Today, Chili finally changed out of her office lady clothes. But the clothes she was wearing now were still full of aura. She wore a set of clothes inside. The top was a slightly tight beige shirt with a wide belt made of black cloth. The bottom was also beige trousers, which showed that her legs were particularly long, coupled with a pair of beige high heels and a white, shawl-like woman's suit. With her makeup today and her hair in a bun, wearing a necklace, earrings, and a pair of sunglasses, she looked so strong that Jiang Hai didn't dare to go up and talk to her. The domineering aura of the president shocked Jiang Hai for a moment, and he forgot that he was a little cold. You came down. Looking at Chi Li in front of him, Jiang Hai hesitated and felt that he should say something first. Is it just you? The two of them aren't going? Looking around and finding that only Jiang Hai was there, Chi Li asked strangely, Oh, it's just me, they aren't going. Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai naturally knew who she was asking and immediately replied, Hey, they're quite good. If it's just the two of us, then we won't drive this car. Let's drive this. I just bought this a few days ago. Hearing that Feng Yinxin and AI Xiaoxi weren't going, Chili couldn't help but smile, and then led Jiang Hai to the underground parking lot. As soon as he walked in, Jiang Hai saw a fiery red sports car parked there from far away. Wow, there are people who buy such a sports car in this community. After all, he has lived here for a year, Jiang Hai asked strangely. He now has some understanding of cars. This car is a Ferrari 488. Although the number is not very auspicious, it is also a good thing in the domestic sports car industry. The cheapest car, the fruit car, is worth $38 million, not to mention that this car doesn't look cheap. If it is expensive, it is nearly $4 million, plus the purchase tax and so on. It is almost $4,300,000 or $400,000. This is mine, Yi Zichen said. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chili couldn't help but smile. She picked up the key, unlocked the car, and walked over. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but be a little confused. She bought a car, but why did she buy a car and put it here? I have to thank you for this car. I bought it with the tax I saved. The reason why this car is parked here is that I'm going to give this car to Xiao Yi. Maybe she felt Jiang Hai's confusion. Chili sat down and said after getting in the car. Hearing Chi Li's words, Jiang Hai also shrugged. Anyway, it is her money. She can do whatever she wants. Besides, Jiang Hai also knows in the eyes of Chi Li and Chi Li's mother, Zheng Xiao is like their sister and daughter. Not to mention that Jiang Hai doesn't care about the money. Even if he does, he can't stop Chi Li from giving it to her. But before sending it, let's be the first batch of passengers. Looking at Jiang Hai, who got into the car and fastened his seatbelt, Chi Li said with a smile. Then she stepped on the accelerator and drove out of the underground parking lot. After leaving the community, the sports car was like a ball of fire on the road when the sun just rose, moving forward quickly. At about 5:30, Jiang Hai and the others had already arrived at Huang Yunfei's new home. Well, in addition to the house he bought over the years, he bought another house for this wedding. Don't talk about how much the doctors and nurses earn. After all, This was what Jiang Hai saw with his own eyes. At this time, there were many cars parked downstairs of his new house. The owners of these cars were basically his parents' friends, relatives, colleagues, and so on. Although they made a lot of money, the cars they drove were not very good. Basically, cars that cost more than 200,000 yuan or 300,000 yuan were the most expensive. Most of them only cost about 200,000 yuan, because a lot of the money they made was not exposed to the public. Although they didn't lack money to drive cars that cost millions, if they drove cars that cost millions, it was inevitable that they would be reported and investigated. At that time, it would be troublesome. Therefore, when Jiang Hai's car arrived, many people looked at Jiang Hai's car and began to whisper to each other. When the car was parked, Jiang Hai and Qi Li got out of the car. They were particularly eye-catching. Qi Li was originally beautiful. Coupled with her aura and the red sports car that added a few hundred points, she instantly attracted a lot of attention. And there was only comparison when there was a comparison. Jiang Hai next to her was dressed in sportswear, which made her feel like a goddess. This made several people who were leaning against the car and chatting subconsciously tidy up their clothes and show their watches, hoping to attract the attention of the goddess. Unfortunately, at this time, Qi Li only had Jiang Hai in her eyes. After getting out of the car, she naturally held Jiang Hai's arm, which really shocked the people on the ground. Jiang Hai didn't care about these people. He took Qi Li upstairs. Upstairs, Fu Yuan and the others had already arrived in advance. They were there to pack up the candy box and prepare to go downstairs. When they saw Qi Li, they couldn't help but secretly click their tongues. Chapter 594. They already knew that Qi Li was pretty. After all, they had seen Qi Li at Jiang Hai's wedding. But except for that one time, they didn't seem to have seen Qi Li again. After all, Qi Li wasn't interested in Jiang Hai at first, so she didn't even look at Jiang Hai's friends. Now that they saw Qi Li come out, it was as if all the light was concentrated on Qi Li's body. Not only were the men unable to move their eyes away, the women were also the same. Hey, congratulations. Looking at everyone's appearance, Jiang Hai has to admit that he has gained a lot of face. He smiled at Huang Yunfei and gave him a red packet. There were 500 renminbi in the red packet. Don't look at the small amount of money. Jiang Hai could afford to pay more. He could afford to pay 1,000, 10,000, or even 100,000. However, there was no need for that. Firstly, Huang Yunfei's family was not short of money. Secondly, Bing City's custom was to return the same amount of money you gave this time. When Jiang Hai got married, Huang Yunfei gave him 500 renminbi. So, Jiang Hai also gave him 500 renminbi. Even if Jiang Hai gave him 10,000 renminbi this time, he still had to return the 10,000 renminbi the next time Jiang Hai got into trouble. There was no need for him to do so. Also, Jiang Hai wanted to see how much Fu Yuan and the rest had given him. After all, they were all buddies. Jiang Hai did not need to do this. This was just a small gift. Thank you, but I say, Sai, forget it. After taking the money from Jiang Hai, Huang Yunfei glanced at Qi Li and swallowed his words. He really wanted to say that he did not want Qi Li to go. It was because she was too eye-catching. His wife was just an ordinary person. Even if she was wearing a wedding dress today, she would probably be outclassed by Qi Li by a few hundred levels. When Qi Li stood there, not many people would look at them. But he could not say this. Was Qi Li an ordinary person? She was President Qi, and her family was worth tens of billions. He had come here to give him face, yet he still dared to grumble. Did he still have any shame? Besides, he also felt that Qi Li was very pleasing to the eye. It was just that all of a sudden, he was not as excited to get married as before. Damn, there's a red Ferrari downstairs. It's so cool. Is it your friend's? At this moment, Xianghua also ran up from downstairs. Just now, he and Su Wei went to press red paper for the community's manhole cover and just came back. As soon as he went upstairs, he began to talk. To be honest, there were few men who disliked cars. This car was indeed very beautiful. That's mine. Why? Is it in the way? Hearing Xianghua's words, Qi Li also saw Xianghua. She knew that this was Jiang Hai's smile, so she deliberately showed a smile and said politely to Xianghua. As a result, when Xianghua heard the voice, he looked up and was stunned. In fact, it was not only him who was stunned. Su Wei, who came up later, Huang Yunfei, and Fu Yuan, who were in the room, were also stunned. Cough, sister-in-law, try not to smile at the wedding later. Xiang Hua, who had a wife, was the first to react. He smiled awkwardly and then said to Qi Li. When Qi Li heard his words, she stared at Jiang Hai and blinked, indicating that she did not quite understand. Looking at her, Jiang Hai also smiled. Sigh, I really wonder if you're here to cause trouble. You better hurry up and give out the candies. By the way, take your beautiful wife away. Otherwise, my mother will feel uncomfortable again. By the way, since you're driving a Ferrari here, you could be my driver later. Looking at Qi Li's cute appearance, Huang Yunfei felt that his original excitement calmed down again. But suddenly, he had an idea. Qi Li's car could be his driver. For this wedding, Huang Yunfei's wedding car was a Bentley. Originally, he was going to use this as the driver. But now that he had a sports car, it was best to use it as a driver. It would be much more beautiful in the video. Okay, no problem. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Qi Li also smiled and said to Huang Yunfei. Her smile stunned the people in the room again. Seeing this scene, Jiang Hai shrugged helplessly. He had to admit that Qi Li really gave him face. Of course, there were many people around Jiang Hai who could give him face like this, but Qi Li was the most dignified. Carrying a plastic bag of candy, Jiang Hai and Fu Yuan went downstairs again. After letting Qi Li go back to the car and wait, Jiang Hai and the others went to give out the candy. But after a few steps, when they were sure that Qi Li had gotten into the car and waited, Fu Yuan couldn't help but pat Jiang Hai's shoulder. I say, when did sister-in-law become so beautiful? Among these brothers, Jiang Hai's age was the second youngest, only older than Huang Yunfei, so it was not bad for them to call Qi Li's sister-in-law. It has always been like this. After thinking about it, Jiang Hai said very clearly, Qi Li really hasn't changed much. Damn, I didn't know that sister-in-law was so beautiful. God, you have such a wife, and you still go out to flirt? Pointing at Jiang Hai, Su Wei was also a little stunned. He couldn't imagine that Jiang Hai was so fierce. Sweat, it's not like you don't know the things between us. You make it sound like I'm wrong. Hearing their words, Jiang Hai wiped his sweat. These guys forget their friends when they see a woman. This is my wife. If this is a beauty that they don't know, they will go crazy. Looking at their eyes that were about to burst into flames, Jiang Hai looked at them contemptuously and said, with such a beautiful wife, what does it matter if it's right or wrong? Unless she goes out to find a man, otherwise, as long as she doesn't leave me, I can put up a board to worship her at home. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Xiang Hua said with some disappointment. His wife is so beautiful. Does it matter who is right and who is wrong? You say this as if Feng Yunshun and AI Xiaoxi are not beautiful. Hearing their words, Jiang Hai curled his mouth and said with disdain. When they heard what Jiang Hai said, they were stunned again. Indeed, when they saw AI Xiaoxi the day before yesterday, they were stunned. When they saw Feng Yunshun yesterday, they were also stunned. These three are rare beauties, but now they are all taken by Jiang Hai, this pig. AI, it's intolerable. There are some things that can't be envied. Let's go. Looking at the brothers around him, Fu Yuan sighed helplessly and continued to give out candies and cigarettes. Not long after all the candies and cigarettes were given out, it was almost 8 o'clock. Anyway, it was an auspicious time. Jiang Hai didn't look at the specific time. The team lined up and started to set off. The first car was naturally Qi Li's Ferrari 488. Jiang Hai sat in the front passenger seat. They followed the video car all the way to the front. After about half an hour, they arrived at the woman's home. This time, Jiang Hai didn't bring Qi Li up because if something really happened, it would be troublesome. So they just went up, knocked on the door, gave out red packets, looked for shoes, and so on. After everything was done, they put on the new shoes for the bride, went downstairs, took some photos, and recorded some videos. After that, they got into the wedding car and went to the place of the ceremony. When they arrived at the scene, most of the things were already done. The only thing left was the ceremony. Jiang Hai and the others didn't need to do anything. Huang Yunfei's two cousins had already prepared the fake wine. At the wedding, the bride and groom had to toast each other, and this wine was not real wine 90% of the time. Of course, it didn't rule out that some people had a high alcohol tolerance, so when they drank, they used real wine. Huang Yunfei had a good alcohol tolerance, but he wasn't going to use real wine. The wine was a bottle of white wine. After the white wine was poured out, the bottle would be stained with the smell of white wine. Then, mineral water was poured in. There was a trace of alcohol smell, but it didn't have any alcohol content. Jiang Hai also had an important task, which was to sit next to Qi Li. If someone saw that Qi Li was too beautiful and had bad intentions, it would be troublesome. So, it was better to let her husband, Jiang Hai, sit there and watch. Moreover, Qi Li didn't know anyone here, so it was still very awkward to sit there. Sure enough, with Jiang Hai sitting here, although there were a lot of men looking over, none of them dared to come over. The two also chatted casually. The atmosphere was good, but Jiang Hai could see that Qi Li was a little absent-minded. What's wrong? Looking at Qi Li, Jiang Hai asked strangely. This was not like the Qi Li he knew. It's nothing. Jiang Hai, drink with me later. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li shook her head, then looked up at Jiang Hai and said with a serious face. She said that she wanted a drink, so Jiang Hai naturally wouldn't disagree. If she wanted a drink, then drink. With the end of the wedding ceremony, the chopsticks were officially handed out. Jiang Hai just picked up the chopsticks and prepared to eat something. After all, he really didn't eat anything since the morning. But before the chopsticks could pick up anything, Qi Li had already handed over a glass of wine that had been filled to the brim. Looking at Qi Li's serious eyes, Jiang Hai took the wine. Come on, drink. Seeing Jiang Hai take the wine, Qi Li didn't say anything. She directly raised her head and drank the glass of wine. Seeing her like this, Jiang Hai was shocked. It should be known that it was white wine, not water. Although the wine used by Huang Yunfei for the banquet was not very good wine, it was still 38%. This glass was 2.5 ounces. Jiang Hai felt uncomfortable just looking at it, but Qi Li drank the wine directly and then placed the glass in front of Jiang Hai. Okay, looking at her, Jiang Hai sighed helplessly and then drank his glass. To be honest, Jiang Hai was afraid of drinking now. After all, he had 4 times the physical fitness of the human limit. In addition, he used to drink wine every day in the manor. This wine was nothing to him, but for Qi Li it was... Chapter 595. After drinking a glass of wine, Qi Li's face suddenly turned pale instead of red. After all, Qi Li's starting point was quite high. When she started working, she was already the general manager and chairman. The deals she went to discuss were basically all from the imperial capital or even from the upper echelons. She couldn't touch those nouveau riche and careless fellows. Even if she did, the other party wouldn't dare to use a chicken feather as an arrow. Therefore, when she first started to take power, basically, it was fine as long as she was present. As long as she was present, no one would deliberately force her to drink. It was normal for a glass of red wine to accompany her until the end of the meeting, so her alcohol tolerance was really not very good. Most importantly, this was not red wine, but white wine. After drinking this glass, not to mention her, even a man may not be able to withstand it. After all, she drank in such a hurry. Come on, let's drink again. Seeing that Jiang Hai also drank up the wine, Qi Li couldn't help but pour another glass in her glass. Then she wanted to pour another glass for Jiang Hai. Looking at her, Jiang Hai frowned and pulled up the bottle. Don't stop me. I really want to drink today. Looking at Jiang Hai, Qi Li said with a serious face. Looking at her eyes, Jiang Hai's hand gradually loosened. Then he sighed and put the food he picked with his chopsticks on Qi Li's plate. If you want to drink, eat first. Looking at Qi Li, Jiang Hai said seriously. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li also smiled. She didn't reject Jiang Hai's kindness. She lowered her head and ate up the food. As soon as she finished eating, Jiang Hai put another plate on her plate. So in this way, Jiang Hai put more food on her plate, and she ate there. Unknowingly, she also ate some food. After eating about 3 plates, she put down her chopsticks, picked up the wine glass directly, and looked at Jiang Hai. Jiang Hai also knew that she couldn't eat much. 3 plates of food was almost enough, and the food here didn't taste good. Now seeing that she stopped eating and looked up at Jiang Hai also sighed. After eating the food on her plate, he also picked up the wine glass. If she wanted to drink, let her drink. Anyway, Jiang Hai was here, nothing would happen. When the two's wine glasses touched, Chi drank up the glass in an instant. Perhaps because there was some food in her stomach, Chi's face was still a little pale, but it was already a little red. Come, let's drink again. Seeing that Jiang Hai also drank up the wine, Chi picked up another bottle and filled it for Jiang Hai and herself. Then, without waiting for Jiang Hai to say anything, she directly raised her head and drank up the wine. Seeing this scene, Jiang Hai was speechless. She was going to make herself more today. Drinking 3 glasses directly was 7.5, which was enough to settle her. Jiang Hai was not afraid that she would drink too much, but it would be troublesome if she drank and hurt herself. Just as Jiang Hai hesitated to drink up the 3rd glass, Chi had already poured the 4th glass. Hey, don't drink in such a hurry. The bride and groom are here to propose a toast. Seeing that she was about to drink again, Jiang Hai could not help but put his hand on the glass and said to Chi. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chi also looked at the 2 newlyweds who were walking over. We didn't propose a toast at that time. Looking at the 2 people walking over, Chi's tongue was a little stiff. Looking at the 2 people in front of her, Chi whispered. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai also sighed. Indeed, they didn't propose a toast. At that time, you were in a bad mood. After thinking for a while, Jiang Hai found an excuse for her. Yeah, I was in a bad mood at that time. I was thinking about my dad, but now I'm still in a bad mood because I'm thinking about another man, a bastard named Jiang Hai. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chi was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said to Jiang Hai. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai could not help but be speechless. How was he supposed to answer this? The newlyweds are here. Come, let me propose a toast to you. I wish you a happy life and a happy marriage. At this moment, Huang Yunfei and his wife also walked over, holding 2 glasses of water and looking at everyone with a smile. At this moment, Chi took the initiative to walk over and said to the newlyweds. Looking at Chi's appearance, Huang Yunfei could not help but be a little confused. What's going on? And before he could say anything, she directly drank a glass of wine. Seeing this scene, the people who were eating at the table were also a little confused, and Huang Yunfei was also a little embarrassed. What is this little episode? Cough, it's my first time drinking. Maybe I drank too much. Let's drink. By the way, you're going to take photos in a while. I'll lend you my car first. I'll park it in your garage tonight. I'll come to you tomorrow. Looking at Chi's current situation, Jiang Hai couldn't help but feel a little depressed. He walked a few steps to Chi's side and hugged her in his arms, then apologized to Huang Yunfei. After drinking his wine, he took the car key out of Chi's bag. Now neither of them could drive. After all, they both drank. Even if Jiang Hai is fine, they can't drive. You know, drunk driving in Huaxia is punishable by jail. Unlike in the United States, drinking and driving is at most community service. Jiang Hai doesn't want to experience the taste of the Northeast prison, so he directly threw the car key to Huang Yunfei. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei's eyes lit up. If he can use Jiang Hai's car for the video later, it will be great. That's fine. You take care of sister-in-law first. If you feel uncomfortable, you can send sister-in-law back first. We will play cards in the afternoon. If you have time, come over and thank you in the evening. I will call you then. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei also said with a smile. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also waved his hand and then nodded apologetically to the people around him. He then walked out of the restaurant with Chi, who was already a little unstable and drunk. However, although Chi was a little drunk, after all, she drank half a liter. However, her consciousness was still very clear. She knew that the person who was caressing her was Jiang Hai, her husband. Therefore, her body took the initiative to lean against Jiang Hai's side, allowing Jiang Hai to caress her better. In this way, the 2 people took advantage of the chaos to leave first. After arriving downstairs, Jiang Hai took a taxi. The two sat in the back row, so that it was convenient for Jiang Hai to take care of her. "Where are you two going?" Seeing Jiang Hai and Qi Li get in the car, the taxi driver here couldn't help but look at Qi Li twice. Such a beautiful passenger. He didn't meet many times. And what's the situation now? Drunk too much? Is Jiang Hai a corpse picker? Go to XX Road, XX. After getting in the car, Jiang Hai subconsciously reported the location of his home. But just after he finished speaking, Qi Li had already waved her hand and sat up, patting the driver's seat in front of her. "No, go to XX Road, XX Community. I don't want to go to your home." "That is your home, not my home. I want to go to our home, our new house." Looking at Jiang Hai, Qi Li said with a serious face. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai also sighed. "Then go to XX Road, XX Community." Looking at the appearance of Jiang Hai and Qi Li, this made the taxi driver a little confused. Two people's new house? If it's not that this woman is too unscrupulous, then these two may really be a couple or boyfriend and girlfriend. Although he was cursing in his heart, a flower inserted in cow dung, he still drove the car and drove to Jiang Hai's home. Sitting in the back of the taxi, Jiang Hai looked at Qi Li, who was already a little drunk, and Jiang Hai really didn't know what to say. The taxi was still quite fast. After arriving at the place, Jiang Hai paid the money and walked into the community with Qi Li. At first, the security guards of the community looked at Jiang Hai's movements and were shocked. But after seeing Jiang Hai and Qi Li, they were quiet because Jiang Hai and Qi Li were residents of this community, especially Jiang Hai. After all, a year ago, he lived here for a year, and Qi Li often came back recently, but this was the first time that the two appeared at the same time. However, since it was determined that they were the owners of the house, and they were a couple, these security guards couldn't interfere. After carrying Qi Li back to their former home, Jiang Hai couldn't help but feel emotional after opening the door. He lived here to wait for Qi Li, but now Qi Li lived here. Was she waiting for him? Jiang Hai really didn't know. After changing his shoes, the slippers were still in the original position. Jiang Hai carried Qi Li into the master bedroom, put her on the bed, and helped her take off her shoes and coat. As for the clothes inside, Jiang Hai didn't touch them. Looking at the drunk Qi Li, Jiang Hai squatted next to her and looked at her. Maybe she felt Jiang Hai's gaze. Although she had a headache, Qi Li still opened her eyes, and the two looked at each other. "You can't drink. Why do you drink so much? Do you feel uncomfortable? If you feel uncomfortable, just vomit. I'll get you a basin." Looking at Qi Li, who was looking at him, Jiang Hai sighed and wanted to stand up and go to the bathroom to get a basin. But before he stood up completely, his hand was pulled by Qi Li. "Although I drank a lot of wine and my body is weak, my consciousness is still there. I am not drunk." Looking at Jiang Hai, Qi Li said with a serious face. Hearing Qi Li's words, Jiang Hai looked at her clear eyes. Sure enough, she has strong control over her body, especially in the spiritual aspect. Now she can't stand up, but her consciousness is still clear. "Then what do you want to do? You tell me. I'll help you." Looking at Qi Li, who was looking at him, Jiang Hai bent down and asked her, "I want you to F***CK me." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Qi Li said seriously, "What?" But when he heard her, she said, Jiang Hai was a bit confused. "This guy shouldn't be drunk, right? Don't you understand? I want you to F***CK me. I'm not sure if I can accept you and other people at the same time, but I can't just let you go like this. I want to compete with AI Xiaoxi and the others. First of all, I have to be able to do what they can do. I'm not trying to prove how great I am. I just want to prove that I can get back what I lost." Looking at Jiang Hai, Qi Li didn't know where the strength came from, but she directly pulled Jiang Hai to the bed. Chapter 596. "Hey, Jiang Hai, where are you? Come over for dinner." Picking up the phone, Jiang Hai listened to Huang Yunfei's voice on the other side. He couldn't help but rub his head with a headache, and then looked at Qi Li, who was blinking her big eyes in front of him, looking at him. But at this time, Jiang Hai and Qi Li were no longer in a pure relationship. At this time, the two of them were naked. There were some bright red bloodstains on the sheets. There was no need to say what happened just now. "I can't go. I still have something to do here. Chi Li is very drunk and can't leave. Let's talk about it when we have time. Hearing Huang Yunfei's voice on the phone, Jiang Hai sighed and said to the other side of the phone. Hearing that Jiang Hai couldn't leave, Huang Yunfei didn't say anything. After all, they still have a long time to meet. Huang Yunfei and the others are going to the United States with Jiang Hai to play, so they don't care about this meal. After everything was done, Jiang Hai also hung up the phone. As soon as the phone was hung up, Chi Li instantly came up, her hands around Jiang Hai's neck. Her mouth was about to touch Jiang Hai's mouth, and her body was completely attached to Jiang Hai's body. Don't make trouble. Your mouth reeks of alcohol. Jiang Hai put the phone aside and then said to Chi Li, you want me to brush my teeth before you kiss me? Didn't you kiss me happily just now? Then, why don't you kiss me here? Hearing what Jiang Hai said, Chi Li curled her lips and then deliberately moved up a bit, revealing her brutality, and smiled at Jiang Hai. Haven't you had enough just now? You're still messing around. Looking at Chi Li, Jiang Hai also put his hand on Brutal and gently pinched it, making Chi Li cry out. Then, she glared at Jiang Hai and slid her hand down his neck. Feeling Chi Li's movement, Jiang Hai patted her butt and said to her, "Yes, it's not enough. It's not enough for a lifetime. I didn't know that it was such a comfortable thing before. No wonder Feng Yunxin and AI Xiaoxi, those two little sluts, took the initiative to touch you as soon as they saw you. I heard that it's very painful when women do it, but other than the initial pain, I don't feel anything now." Listening to Jiang Hai's words, Chi Li combed her hair behind her head, leaned on Jiang Hai's chest, and said softly while using her hand. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but mutter in his heart. If it weren't for his spiritual energy, would she not feel pain? It should be known that Chi Li had been suppressing her feelings for a long time just now. She was very crazy. Under such a crazy situation, every movement she made would be very painful. How could it be like now, where nothing happened? Let's do it again. Looking at Jiang Hai, Chi Li leaned on Jiang Hai's ear and whispered. Then, without waiting for Jiang Hai's answer, she unconsciously increased the strength of her hands. Soon, Jiang Hai was ready, and the battle began again. At the end of the battle, the sky had completely darkened. As for Chi Li, she looked like she was dehydrated. She was sweating all over as she lay on the bed. Her hair was stuck to her face and everywhere. Even Jiang Hai couldn't help but gasp for breath. At this time, Jiang Hai's WeChat also rang. He picked it up and saw that it was a message from AI Xiaoxi, asking if he would come back for dinner. Looking at the time, it was already 7 o'clock in the evening. Those two girls couldn't have been waiting for him until now, right? Let's go. I'll take you to take a shower, and then we'll go out for dinner. Since Chi Li had made up her mind to have such a relationship with him, Jiang Hai's originally tangled problem also relaxed a little. Patting Chi Li's leg, Jiang Hai said to her, "And your two little lovers, forget it, I won't go. Let me have a good rest, I'm not hungry." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Chi Li looked at him with contempt, then raised her head and said helplessly. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai couldn't help but be angry. Without saying a word, he directly carried her out of the room and went to the bathroom next door. He turned on the water, and the two played while washing. Of course, maybe because they had been here many times just now, neither Jiang Hai nor Chi Li said anything this time. After playing for a while, the two wiped themselves clean and walked out. This time, the smell of alcohol on the two disappeared. When Chi Li went to put on makeup, pack things, and put on clothes, Jiang Hai also went to the room and changed the bed sheets. At the same time, he opened the window to change the air. Now the air in the room, as long as an adult came in, he would know what had just happened here. Originally, when he was impulsive, this smell was very stimulating, but now in the case of Sage Mode, it was a bit unpleasant. He connected the automatic washing machine and threw in Chi Li's clothes and bed sheets. Jiang Hai didn't care what material Chi Li's clothes were made of and directly began to stir. After all this was done, Chi Li also changed into a new set of clothes. Compared with the valiant look she wore during the day, this set of clothes was more like a cute little bird. Wearing it, she looked very cute. After watching Chi Li change her clothes, Jiang Hai, and Qi Li also walked out of the door. But as soon as they walked out, Qi Li instantly took Jiang Hai's arm and leaned on Jiang Hai's side. Now she was really attached to Jiang Hai. This was also the most passionate state of love. The two went downstairs. After an afternoon of exercise, Qi Li might not be able to do it, but Jiang Hai had already sweated out the alcohol in his body. Now there was no alcohol in his body, so he could drive. Even if he was stopped, it wouldn't be detected. After getting in the Infinity, Jiang Hai took Qi Li and drove in the direction of his home. When they were about to arrive, he called AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan. After the two went downstairs, they got in the car. But as soon as they entered the car, they felt that the atmosphere was a bit wrong. In the past, Jiang Hai and AI Xiaoxi would communicate with each other in the car, but the communication was mainly through words. But this time, after they got into the car, they found that Qi Li was touching Jiang Hai. Seeing this scene, the two women couldn't help but be stunned. What the hell is this? What are we going to eat? Seeing someone come in, Qi Li was not very happy, but she still turned her head and asked AI Xiaoxi and Feng Yunshan behind her. Hearing her words, the two women felt even more strange. In the past, Qi Li was just like a strong woman. Her words and actions were swift and decisive. She was not like the current Qi Li. Not only was her body soft, but her voice was also a little delicate. This was not the Qi Li they knew. Director Qi, are you sick? Looking at Qi Li, Feng Yunshan asked strangely. What illness? Hurry up, what are we going to eat? Hearing Feng Yunshan's words, Qi Li couldn't help but roll her eyes at her, and then continued to ask. Hearing that Qi Li seemed to be a little better, Feng Yunshan was temporarily relieved. Whatever you want to eat, Jiang Hai can order it. Glancing at Jiang Hai, Feng Yunshan said. To be honest, she didn't know what to eat. Then let's go eat casserole. After thinking for a while, Jiang Hai suggested to the three women beside him. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the three women first thought for a while, and then nodded. Speaking of which, they haven't eaten this for a while. The so-called casserole, full name is casserole pancake, may be a specialty of the North. Because Jiang Hai didn't go to many places in China, he didn't know much about it, but it is very likely to be in the Northeast. The way to eat it is to put soup in a casserole, just like a normal soup pot. Of course, the soup pot in Bing City also needs to add seasonings, which is different from the soups in the South. In the South, people will drink the original taste of the soup. At most, they will add some salt, because they feel that too much seasonings will destroy the original taste of the ingredients. But in the North, they will add a lot of seasonings to make the soup taste what they like. This is the difference between the North and the South. Bing City's casserole also has seasonings. There are all kinds of casseroles: mutton vermicelli, spinach, beef tofu balls, braised meatballs, steamed meatballs, etc. This soup pot is complete with soup and vegetables. The staple food is rice or pancakes, but basically pancakes are the main food here. The pancakes are crispy, especially when they are just made. The outside is very crispy, but the inside is very soft. It's really delicious when you bite into it. If you feel that the taste is bland, you can also soak the pancakes in the soup so that the taste of the soup is immersed in the pancakes. When you eat the pancakes will soften, and there is also the taste of the soup. It's delicious. Also, there is a special pot of meat, which is actually braised pork, but it is stewed until it's soft. The taste is quite good. When Jiang Hai and the rest were young, they had eaten this dish. AI Xiaoxi is not sure, but Qi Li and Feng Yunshan had eaten it before. But when they grew up, they had fewer chances to eat this dish. After all, things like casseroles were very expensive for a student when they were in school. It was far less suitable to eat boxed lunches and noodles. After working, they earned more money, so they didn't care about this small amount of money. They wouldn't come over to eat casseroles. That's why unless people like to eat casserole dishes, not many people will come to eat casserole dishes. Jiang Hai only remembered casserole dishes today. Since he remembered, the four of them used their phones to find a restaurant and went to eat casserole dishes. After eating casserole pancakes, the four of them breathed a sigh of relief because they were finally full. However, after the meal, the next problem was a little depressing. That was the problem of where to live. Originally, there was nothing much to say. Jiang Hai was definitely going to go back with Feng Yinshen and AI Xiaoxi. But now the problem was that he and Qi Li had just had some things happen in the afternoon. If he just left like this, wouldn't it be a bit bad? But to let Qi Li live in his house, even if Jiang Hai used his toes to think, he knew that this was simply impossible. Chapter 597. Just as Jiang Hai thought, Qi Li did not intend to be open at night. On the first day with Jiang Hai, she stayed with his mistress and slept together. The plot in YY novels was not so easy to appear in the real world. Although in Jiang Hai's opinion, his current life was enough. In the end, after Jiang Hai sent Feng Yinshen and AI Xiaoxi home, he still stayed at Qi Li's place at night. Of course, after eating and regaining her strength, Qi Li was still quite interested in the things she had not done in her 27 years. Jiang Hai was really afraid that she would get addicted. However, Jiang Hai did not refuse. He was busy all night and only slept after midnight. The next day at noon, Qi Li went back to her mother's place. Jiang Hai went back home, but before he could rest at home, the battle started again. One must know that Feng Yinshen returned to Bing City specifically for Jiang Hai. Since Jiang Hai came back, she had not returned home. In the end, Jiang Hai was always at Qi Li's place. She was unhappy, so when she came back, naturally, there was another big battle. After dinner, Jiang Hai's legs were a little weak. He went to Huang Yunfei's place to retrieve the Ferrari 488 that was lent to him for the photo shoot yesterday. Jiang Hai returned to Qi Li's neighborhood. After returning, he naturally could not rest. Other national holidays were time to go out and play or rest at home, but Jiang Hai's national holidays were very busy. During the day, he had to appease Feng Yinshen and AI Xiaoxi. At night, he had to stay with Qi Li, and the three women seemed to be in a competition. They would not give up until they had squeezed Jiang Hai dry. Jiang Hai felt that if he was an ordinary person, he would be finished soon. It might not be long before he was finished. Fortunately, he was not an ordinary person. Sometimes, during the day or the first half of the night, he could use this as an excuse to have dinner and drink with his buddies. Otherwise, his body would be at a disadvantage. After all, this was Ice City, and he could not absorb any spiritual energy here. Ever since Jiang Hai joined the United States, he had only gained one scale, and it was grown in AI Xiaoxi's hometown in Lu Province. Other than that, nothing else had grown. He had to admit that the environmental problems in the country, especially in the cities, were really troublesome. Although Bingqing's environment was not particularly good, it was not particularly bad either. At least when there was no central heating, the weather outside was still good. At least one could still see the blue sky and white clouds. However, the hearse was still motionless. Unknowingly, the National Day holiday was over. In the blink of an eye, it was October 7th. Tomorrow was the start of work. Jiang Hai and the rest were also ready to leave. However, when they came over, they came separately. When they left, many of them left at once. Jiang Hai, Qi Li, Feng Yinshen, AI Xiaoxi, Huang Yunfei and his wife, Su Wei, and Fu Yuan, who were going to play with Jiang Hai. There were 8 people in total. Su Wei specially went to find a man who drove a large van and drove them to the airport. With Jiang Hai's help, Huang Yunfei and the rest bought tickets from Ice City to Beijing and from Beijing to the United States. Although they were economy class tickets, they were all business class tickets. Although these tickets were bought by themselves, how much did Jiang Hai spend in the past year? There was no way to forget about it. Therefore, the points from American Express were also quite high. They could spend some points to upgrade their cabin. Jiang Hai didn't need these points, so it would be better to just leave them there and do some small things. The group took the plane to Beijing. After resting for a night in Beijing, Jiang Hai, Huang Yunfei, and the rest boarded the plane from Beijing to New York. Qi Li, AI Xiaoxi, and Feng Yinshen did not follow Jiang Hai this time. Qi Li still had to take care of her family's business. Although AI Xiaoxi's heart had already changed, she still needed to prepare. Feng Yinshen had to follow AI Xiaoxi, so in the end, only the 3 of them stayed. After Jiang Hai and the 3 girls were intimate for a while, They boarded the plane and prepared to return to Winthrop. On the plane back, Jiang Hai specially bought a business class ticket. The price of a business class ticket was nearly 4 times the price of a first class ticket. The service was indeed 4 times worse. The chair could not be opened completely like a bed, and there were not so many seats for him. Although it was much wider than the economy class, he was not used to sitting in the first class. Fortunately, the 4 of them could still have a good chat. As for Huang Yunfei's wife, LV Jiao, there was not much to talk about. Jiang Hai and the rest had seen this girl before. She didn't like to talk or play much. She was very quiet and didn't have any opinions. Otherwise, she wouldn't have married Huang Yunfei, who was a playboy. Watching his wife fall asleep, Huang Yunfei also whispered to Jiang Hai on the plane, "I say, the foreign woman over there, is she fun?" He carefully touched Jiang Hai and whispered to Jiang Hai, "Not bad, but it mainly depends on your own level." Glancing at Huang Yunfei, Jiang Hai thought for a moment and said to him, "Although Jiang Hai has not been to Winthrop and Boston to find these professional women to discuss life and persuade them to do good. But when she was in New York, the price was not high, but the effect was also quite good, and there was an unexpected gain that night. Haven't you heard of my level? I am known as the Little Prince of the Golden Gun." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei said confidently, "He really hasn't tried anything like a foreign woman and winning glory for the country. Hee, number 3 screw is number 3 screw. It has nothing to do with what material it is made of. When it is put on number 8 nut, it will shake a lot." Hearing his words, Jiang Hai glanced at him disdainfully and said with a smile, Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Huang Yunfei was a little overwhelmed this time. "Can we have fun? Really?" As for Su Wei and Fu Yuan, they listened to Jiang Hai's words and kept laughing there. They had considered the problem mentioned by Jiang Hai before, but they heard that it was Ting Lu, so they had to give it a try. After getting off the plane, "We will go directly back to my manor by car. Of course, we will take a detour on the way. If you want to take a photo of the goddess of nature or something, you can take it then. When you get to my manor, you can rest first. On the second day, I will take you out to sea. Let me tell you, I'm a rich man now. I bought a yacht after Fu Yuan left." Seeing that everyone had laughed enough, Jiang Hai also talked to them about the arrangements for these days. When it came to this, Fu Yuan couldn't help but give him a middle finger. This guy is too shameless. This time, Su Wei and the others applied for the same 10-day visa as the last time Fu Yuan came. Naturally, they couldn't do anything on the first day. On the second day, Jiang Hai took them out to sea to fish. At noon, they could go diving on the coral reef. At night, they went back to hold a party. On the third day, they went to Winthrop. Of course, they couldn't play in detail. Then, they went to the gun shop in the afternoon. As for riding horses, they could ride in Jiang Hai's manor. This was the itinerary of the 4th day. On the 4th day, they took a break in the afternoon. On the 5th day, Jiang Hai took them into the mountains to burn guns and hunt. On the 6th day, they went to Boston. On the 7th day, they could do whatever they wanted. On the 8th day, they took a day off. On the 9th day, they went shopping. It was impossible for them to come to the United States without bringing anything back. On the 10th day, they returned to New York and flew back to Huaxia. But this time, Jiang Hai didn't go back with them. For this arrangement, everyone was very much in agreement. While talking and chatting, the few of them unknowingly became sleepy. Jiang Hai also put down his chair and slept. Anyway, it was just one night, so it was fine to deal with it. When they woke up, their backs would definitely be sore. However, the plane had already arrived in New York at this time. After getting off the plane, Jiang Hai's shield had been waiting in the parking lot of the airport for a long time. Jiang Hai didn't expect that he would stay so long this time. However, it didn't matter if he stayed for a long time. Looking at Jiang Hai's new car, Fu Yuan, Huang Yunfei, and Su Wei all picked up their mobile phones and began to take pictures. To be honest, this car looked really scary, and they were also very tempted. Even Huang Yunfei was thinking that if Jiang Hai's car was in China, he would use this car as a wedding car. It would really beat the hundreds of streets like Bentley. If Jiang Hai knew his idea, he would probably refuse. It was not because he was reluctant. After all, It was just a wedding car. He had nothing to be reluctant about, but it was still because of that sentence. What car, what job? Although people in Huaxia didn't pay much attention to these things, after all, the wedding was a Western style. It was not good to make a mess. Jianghai Shield had no problem sitting these 5 people. After everyone got in the car, Jianghai also started the engine. A good car was indeed a good car. It had been basking in the dust here for half a month, but it was still very strong. Jianghai stepped on the accelerator and drove out of the airport. He went to a nearby car wash. After the car was automatically washed, they set off again. After all, in the past half a month, although the car was fine, there was a thick layer of dust on it. After all, this was an airport, so the dust was very heavy. After the car was cleaned, Jianghai deliberately made a half circle around New York. For example, the more famous Statue of Liberty, Fifth Avenue, Times Square, and so on. He let everyone take a look at them from afar. After making a circle in New York, they got on a national highway and went straight to Boston. Originally, it took more than 2 hours to go from Boston to New York. From Boston to Jianghai's manor, it was about half an hour. However, after Jianghai made a circle, the plane arrived at 3:30 in the afternoon. It was almost 8 o'clock when they went home. After walking for nearly 5 hours, when the car came to a stop, everyone got out of the car and stretched with all their might. Although they saw a lot of scenery along the way, to be honest, it was really too tiring. Jianghai, you're back. You're so slow. At this moment, in front of Jianghai's villa, a crisp voice sounded. Then Huang Yunfei and others looked over and saw a beautiful woman standing in front of the villa at this time. They were all stunned. Chapter 598. What's going on? Looking at the row of beautiful women in front of them, everyone here was a little confused. The only one who was mentally prepared was Fu Yuan, because when Fu Yuan came last time, he had already seen Aphrodite and Jianghai's 2 daughters, Daliana and Marian, but he had not seen Bernice and Lilia. He had to admit that Bernice and Lilia, these 2 Easterners, were more in line with their aesthetic views. Bernice's strong appearance was somewhat similar to Qi Li, and Lilia's pure white elf-like appearance was even more pitiful. Let me introduce you. First, this is Fu Yuan. In addition to you, Daliana and the others have seen him. This is Su Wei. This is Huang Yunfei. This is Huang Yunfei's wife, LV Jiao. Then I'll introduce you to this side. This is Daliana. This is Marian. This is my daughter. This is Bernice. This is Lilia. They're also my guests. This is Aphrodite Arnold. This is Dana Taylor. This is Hilda Leonard. This is Peggy Hall. This is Sheila Rodney. This is Ohilia Clive. This is Bridget Nelson. This is Janice Joy. They are my, Looking at everyone's puzzled eyes, Jianghai also introduced them. But when it came to Aphrodite and the others, Jianghai couldn't help but be a little speechless. Looking at Aphrodite and the others, Jianghai didn't know what to say. Because how should he introduce them? Say that they are his women? It's a little forced, but say that they are his workers? Isn't that a bit too heartless? Then what are they? Friends? Well, maybe this is a good way to put it. We are Jianghai's servants. Please come in. The guest rooms and dinner are ready. But before Jianghai could say anything, Aphrodite smiled and said. Hearing Aphrodite's words, Jianghai couldn't help but stare blankly. He looked at Aphrodite, but Aphrodite just winked at him. It was obvious that she had been prepared for this address for a long time. Don't listen to their nonsense. These are my friends. All right, let's go in. However, Jianghai didn't go along with her words. Although this was to give him face, Jianghai's heart was still somewhat apologetic. He waved his hand and said something to Su Wei and the others, then led everyone into his villa. However, after walking in, except for Fu Yuan, Su Wei, and Huang Yunfei, felt a sense of confusion. While they were going in, Jianghai also tugged at Aphrodite. Why didn't he see Azalina? She hasn't been feeling well these past few days, so she's resting in her room. Hearing Jianghai's words, Aphrodite whispered, "Not feeling well?" Hearing Aphrodite's explanation, Jianghai was a little puzzled, but Aphrodite smiled and didn't explain more, because they had never eaten with so many beautiful women around them, and the place where they ate was actually a standalone villa. To be honest, it was almost like a dream. At this time, after they entered the house, They unconsciously tightened their bodies and looked at everything around them. Seeing their reaction, Jiang Hai also chuckled. It was quite good to show them his power. Okay, let's serve the dishes. When everyone was seated, Bernice also shouted towards the kitchen. Then Aphrodite and the others went to the kitchen and began to serve the dishes that had been prepared long ago. Although these dishes were not all made by Little Ya, they were almost all guided by Little Ya. Her craftsmanship was not too bad. As soon as the first dish was served, Huang Yunfei's eyes widened, because the first dish was a huge Boston lobster. Although they saw Fu Yuan showing off in their circle of friends before, it was the first time they saw it in real life. Looking at that huge lobster, they couldn't help but swallow their saliva. This thing, how heavy is it? It's more than 20 jin. Pointing to the lobster in front of him, Huang Yunfei said with a trembling voice, "He is a rich man, and he has basically eaten everything. After all, those equipment dealers, pharmaceutical representatives, and the like, in order to let them use their things, naturally they have to treat them, eat, take a bath, whatever the dragon is, and the quality is quite good. So he has eaten lobster before, but such a big lobster, let alone eat it, he has never even seen it before. This one is 18. 5 jin in total." Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, most of the people at the dinner table were a little confused. After all, he spoke Mandarin, but Bernice, Lilia, Delina, and Marian could still understand him. So Bernice said, answering his doubts. Hearing Bernice's words, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. 18. 5 jin, that is to say, this lobster is 37 jin? 37 jin. It's not 3. 5 jin. Thinking of this, he immediately took out his mobile phone and began to take pictures. Of course, except for him, the others will not be polite. Such a big lobster, if they don't take pictures of it, they won't be able to sleep at night. Jiang Hai, you are too polite. Such a big lobster, my God. After the shooting, Su Wei awkwardly said, "They came here to play, but they didn't come here to take advantage of Jiang Hai." Although they said that Jiang Hai would take care of the food and drink, but Jiang Hai gave them such a big gift, which made them somewhat unable to sit still. How much would this thing cost? It's okay. Although the size of this lobster is not small, I still have a lot of it. At least, I can't finish it. Looking at Su Wei and the others who were a little embarrassed, Jiang Hai said with a smile, "He does have a lot of these things." Hearing Jiang Hai's words, the people here couldn't help but sigh with emotion. What a terrible guy. However, before they could react, the second dish was served. Once they saw it, they couldn't stay calm anymore. Because the second dish was abalones, all of which were abnormally large and top-grade abalones. Each of them was lying on the plate, stripped of their shells, and cut with a knife to form a grid that looked like kidney flowers. Braised abalone. When this thing was served, Jiang Hai's appetite was somewhat moved. Needless to say, Huang Yunfei and the others picked up their mobile phones again. It was simply intolerable if they didn't take pictures of this thing. However, just as they finished taking pictures of the abalones, the sea cucumbers were served. These sea cucumbers were all abnormally big and naturally attracted a lot of attention. After the lobster, abalone, and sea cucumbers, it was the beef. The beef was divided into 2 parts. The first part was stewed beef, and the second part was fried steak. When these things were served, it naturally attracted a lot of attention, because they all knew that Jiang Hai's beef was not ordinary. It was sold for a few thousand yuan per catty in China. Now, they could eat as much as they wanted. What could be better than this? After the beef, there was mutton, pork, prawns, crabs, cod. Jiang Hai had a lot of delicious food here, although many of the fish were not ripe yet. When the large yellow croakers, Yangtze swordfish, and even Chinese bahaba fish matured, how terrifying would Jiang Hai's dining table be? Even so, salmon, bluefin golden spear, and the like were not on the dining table now. Just the 16 dishes on the table were enough to dazzle the eyes of these people. After the last dish was served, Jiang Hai ordered everyone to move their chopsticks instantly. They first ate the abalone, then the lobster, then the sea cucumbers, the steak, and so on. They were really stuffing food directly into their mouths. These good things are not so easy to eat in China. Looking at Huang Yunfei, Su Wei, Fu Yuan, and even Huang Yunfei's wife, LV Jiao, Aphrodite, and the others who sat down to eat at Jiang Hai's request couldn't help but smile. This reminded them of when they first arrived here. Perhaps because they felt the laughter of these people, Fu Yuan and Su Wei couldn't help but stop sweeping. Then, they smiled a little awkwardly and gently pushed Huang Yunfei beside them. Huang Yunfei also felt that it might not be good to eat like this. After all, they were in front of so many beautiful women. In their eyes, Jiang Hai was really surrounded by beautiful women. Aphrodite and the others had a unique, exotic charm that added a lot of points to them. In addition, these girls were not bad to begin with. Coupled with Jiang Hai's spiritual energy transformation, their appearance, figure, and temperament had some qualitative leaps and bounds. As for Delina and Marian, they were naturally two beauties who had already begun to take shape. As for Bernice and Xiaoya, they were already very good-looking. When they sat there, one looked like an iceberg female doctor while the other looked like an ice fairy. They couldn't help but want to take a few more glances. Being surrounded by so many beautiful women was actually quite stressful, especially Huang Yunfei's wife, LV Jiao. In fact, LV Jiao's appearance was not bad. Although ordinary people were not particularly good-looking, they were not ugly either. According to the standards of domestic internet celebrities, she could be given 75 points. But here, it seemed like she couldn't even pass the passing mark. She was like an ugly duckling in a flock of white swans. The pressure was considerable, but fortunately, these delicious food diverted her attention. In front of delicious food, pressure and whatnot were temporarily put aside. In this way, the three men deliberately restrained themselves and finished the meal. But even if they restrained themselves, they still ate a lot. After eating all the food, Aphrodite and the others packed up and were about to leave. But before leaving, Aphrodite deliberately asked Jiang Hai's ear if she needed to arrange for them to come over tonight. Considering that they had been sitting in business class for the whole day, Jiang Hai was also a little tired, so she told him to talk about it tomorrow. After hearing Jiang Hai's words, Aphrodite first took Huang Yunfei and his wife, Su Wei, and Fu Yuan to the room that was already prepared for them. The room was also Jiang Hai's standard guest room. In the room, there was air conditioning, a big bed, a TV, a wardrobe, a bathroom, and so on. It could be said that it was not worse than the big bedroom in an ordinary hotel. Moreover, there was a hint of the smell of home. After everyone entered the room, Su Wei and Fu Yuan first took the photos in their phones and showed them off. Then, they took a shower and went to bed. As for Huang Yunfei and LV Jiao, they also packed up and prepared to rest. But lying on the bed, LV Jiao looked at Huang Yunfei strangely. She was really curious. Was Huang Yunfei's friend really like what he said? I say, this friend of yours, is he really a cattle breeder? LV Jiao asked strangely as she stuffed herself into Huang Yunfei's arms. Yes, but I never thought that his life would be so extravagant. Hearing his wife's words, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but nod. Thinking back to the scene he saw tonight, he still couldn't get over it. Chapter 599. What was a man's dream? Waking up to control the world, getting drunk, and lying on a beauty's lap. Of course, this was just a dream. Which man didn't watch TV when he was young and fantasize about being an emperor? In today's society, it was impossible to get drunk and control the world. After all, in the entire imperial court, there was only one person who had the final say. One person among the 3 billion. Obviously, they didn't have the brain or the life. But getting drunk and lying on a beauty's lap could still be considered. But unfortunately, this wasn't something that ordinary men could do. After all, the beauties now were all expensive. Of course, this didn't refer to some special industries. A good woman, beautiful, gentle, slender, diligent, and thrifty. These were all possible. The problem was that such a good woman, if she didn't go to film, then the person who pursued her would be unfaithful. It wasn't an easy thing to get drunk and lie on her lap. At least, Su Wei and the others didn't have this idea. Originally, Jiang Hai didn't have this idea, but now he disdained to get drunk and lie down. After returning to his room, Jiang Hai looked at the photos posted by the three people. After leaving a comment, he went to bed. Although he slept for a long time on the plane, to be honest, he didn't sleep well. It was more comfortable to sleep in his own bed. Although he was used to sleeping on a soft bed in the past half a month, sleeping on this white jade bed was indeed a bit uncomfortable, but it was still okay. The night was silent. Early the next morning, Jiang Hai got up, yawned, cleaned up the room, and walked out of the door. But when he came out, he found that Fu Yuan and the others had been waiting outside for a long time. At this time, they were standing in Jiang Hai's parking lot, taking photos with Jiang Hai's luxury cars. Jiang Hai had a lot of good cars here, such as Rolls-Royce, Battle Shield, F-750, and so on. These cars would attract a lot of attention in China. Now, they could take photos as they pleased. They could even sit inside and take photos. Such opportunities were rare. They're all up. Rubbing his eyes and looking at the people outside, Jiang Hai whispered. At this time, Bernice, who had finished her exercise in the gym, also came out. She glanced at the people outside and said to Jiang Hai, "Oh, your friends, they could get up much earlier than you." They got up at about 6 o'clock. After coming to the gym to take a look, they went out to take photos. Bernice said as she wiped her sweat. The weather outside had been getting colder recently. Although Winthrop's weather was not as cold as Bing City's, it was best to do other sports indoors except for running outside. Hearing her words, Jiang Hai glanced at her and found that she was still wearing her usual exercise clothes. The pants and shirt perfectly outlined her body. No wonder Fu Yuan and the others, who were originally visiting the villa, ran outside. You should wear more clothes when there are guests at home. Looking at Bernice's clothes, Jiang Hai said with some displeasure. What? Are you jealous? Hearing Jiang Hai's jealous words, Bernice couldn't help but look at him and said with a smile, Why would I be jealous? I'm afraid you will be taken advantage of. Rolling his eyes at Bernice, Jiang Hai pushed her directly into her room, then shook his head. Jealous? Maybe, maybe not, who knows? You guys got up so early. Putting aside these thoughts for the time being, Jiang Hai walked down the stairs and then walked out of the room. Hey, you finally got up. We remembered that we were going out to play today. We didn't sleep much. Seeing Jiang Hai walk out, Su Wei greeted him immediately and then said with a smile. He had never gone out to sea before. In fact, it wasn't only him. Huang Yunfei and his wife also haven't experienced it. When Fu Yuan came last time, although he went out to sea, he was only on Jiang Hai's boat. He also hasn't been on a proper yacht. Now, he is very anxious. Look at you guys. Have breakfast first, then let's go. Looking at their eager look, Jiang Hai said with a smile, then led everyone to have a simple breakfast. Jiang Hai has been here for a year, and he is used to the breakfast here. Although it is not as refreshing as tofu pudding in Youqiao, the breakfast here is still good. A big bowl of cheddar soup, coupled with toast, milk, and fried ham and eggs, taste very good. After breakfast and cleaning up, Jiang Hai took the 3 men and 1 woman to the beach on 2 off-road motorcycles. Driving by Jiang Hai's river, looking at the river beside him and the grassland further away, and the herd of cattle and sheep that had been released by Robbins Garcia on the grassland, to be honest, such a beautiful scenery is really refreshing. Jiang Hai, I didn't expect your place to be so beautiful. Looking at everything in the distance, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but say with emotion, That's right. If this was my territory, even if you gave me the position of mayor, I would still change. Hearing Huang Yunfei's words, Su Wei also followed up, but halfway through, he realized that he couldn't resist the temptation. Hearing what they said, Jiang Hai couldn't help but laugh. Mayor? If it were him, he wouldn't change, because this is what he is pursuing. Along the way, he looked at the grassland and then at the forest. From time to time, some pheasants, hares, and birds flew by at low altitude. This scene is a perfect fusion of nature and modernity. After settling down and looking at it, it is really a different feeling. But unfortunately, Jiang Hai didn't give them too much time to be artistic. Soon, the 2 off-road motorcycles had already arrived at the dock. Boss, you're back. Seeing that the motorcycles were parked, Edward Anderson and the others walked out of the cabin at the dock. Seeing that it was Jiang Hai and his friends, Edward Anderson couldn't help but smile and say. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also waved at him. After parking the motorcycles, he walked over. These are my friend from Huaxia. Today they're going out to sea on my yacht. Please help me prepare. Looking at Edward Anderson, Jiang Hai said to him. Hearing that Jiang Hai was going out to sea, Edward Anderson waved his hand, and Tommy Charles, Eleanor Cece, and Andrew Christian all came out of the room. Now, Marlon Rupert and Belle Lester have already gone to patrol. Knowing that Jiang Hai was going out to sea, they also began to check. Radio, satellite positioning, fuel gauge, various instruments, fresh water, fuel, etc. Of course, in addition to some food. Seeing that Jiang Hai's 3 men were busy, Su Wei and others were too embarrassed to watch from the side, so they also went to help. Jiang Hai and Edward Anderson chatted about the situation after he left. After learning that their seafood consumption reached a new high in November, Jiang Hai also smiled. This was all within the scope of his plan. In addition to the consumption, he also got a piece of bad news. That is, someone took a fancy to Winthrop. Of course, that person didn't say that he wanted to come here to be the mayor or buy this place directly, but he took a fancy to the location here and wanted to build a factory here. Hearing this, Jiang Hai frowned. Edward Anderson didn't know what kind of factory it was, but in Jiang Hai's view, any factory must have some problems. Now that the town's tourism industry was developing well, there was no need to rely on these things to make money. After all, in his view, any factory must cause pollution to the atmosphere, water, and land, using the present to overdraft the future, unless Jiang Hai's brain was damaged, not to mention others. Jiang Hai would absolutely not agree to it. But what he thought, Mayor Wallace probably thought of it too, so he wasn't very worried. After chatting with Edward Anderson for a while, Jiang Hai's boat was also ready. After informing Edward Anderson, Jiang Hai got on the boat, started the engine, and sailed towards the sea. As soon as the boat left the port, Su Wei, Fu Yuan, and Huang Yunfei on the boat screamed excitedly. Although they had never been on a boat before, it was their first time going out to sea on such a yacht. When they were under the boat, they had already taken a lot of photos. Now that they were on the boat and going out to sea, they directly took photos. Especially Huang Yunfei and his wife, LV Jiao. No woman wouldn't be tempted by these materialistic things. LV Jiao, who was very quiet yesterday, was very excited today. After Jiang Hai set the route, he walked out of the cabin and looked at the excited people on the deck. Jiang Hai couldn't help but laugh. He turned back to the kitchen and took out a box of cold beer. Jiang Hai didn't know what to say. He went back to the kitchen and took out a box of cold beer. Wow, Jiang Hai, you are so generous. How can there be no beer in such a beautiful scenery? Looking at the beer, Fu Yuan ran over with a smile, picked up a bottle of beer, opened it with a lighter, and then raised his head to drink. But he was stopped by Jiang Hai. He was drinking clear beer. This kind of beer was very light and refreshing, but the alcohol content was not small. In drinking this kind of beer, in addition to being cold, it was best to add some lemon juice. The taste was quite good. The last time he came, although Fu Yuan also drank this kind of beer, Jiang Hai didn't drink it at that time, let alone him. This was also something he learned after going to the Caribbean Sea. Seeing Jiang Hai cut a lemon and then squeeze a little lemon juice into it, Fu Yuan shook the bottle with some doubts and then took a sip. People in Bing City like to drink beer, and so did Fu Yuan. As soon as the beer entered his stomach, Fu Yuan's eyes lit up. Why is this wine so delicious? Fu Yuan asked curiously as he looked at the wine bottle in front of him that was written in a foreign language. Of course, otherwise I wouldn't drink this kind of thing. Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also laughed. Chapter 600. Jiang Hai only liked to drink 2 kinds of beer, Corona and Budweiser. Both of these beers were rather light, and there was almost no bitterness in them at all. Paired with lemon juice, it was like a cocktail. The taste was about the same, but there was a bit of steam. It was like a carbonated alcoholic drink. It was different from the so-called pineapple beer. The taste was quite good, and there was a bit of alcohol in it. At least, it was not worse than ordinary beer. Ordinary beer's original juice concentration was about 9% to 11%. This kind of beer was more than 11%. Although it was only a little more than 10%, it meant that its alcohol content was not lower than ordinary beer. But this kind of beer was better than ordinary beer. Of course, this was not absolute. If Jiang Hai's father's generation drank it, they would say, "How is this good?" It was like water, and there was no alcohol taste at all. In this regard, Jiang Hai had nothing to say. For example, Edward Anderson and Robert Garcia did not like to drink this kind of beer. They preferred to drink Cowboy Song's home-brewed barley beer, but Bell and the others liked to drink this. After Jiang Hai tasted it once, he stored a lot of this kind of beer at home. There were more choices in the United States than in China. He could buy beer from almost all the countries in the world here. The famous German and Huaxia beers were available here. But when it comes to drinking, he still likes to drink these two kinds. Hearing Jiang Hai and Fu Yuan's conversation, Huang Yunfei and Su Wei also came over. After opening a bottle, they took a sip and couldn't help but nod secretly. There was no taste, and it was particularly refreshing. After adding some lemon juice, their eyes unconsciously widened. It was really delicious. Looking at Huang Yunfei's appearance, LV Jiao also walked over curiously and took a sip. Then she also liked the taste. But she was different from Huang Yunfei and Jiang Hai. After all, she was a woman, so she just held a bottle and drank. It's boring to just drink and look at the sky. Let's fish for lunch. Jiang Hai Bei finished a bottle of beer very quickly. Then, he looked at his buddies and suggested to them. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, these people were a little eager to try. It was indeed not good to come here without fishing. So they went to the cabin and took out Jiang Hai's fishing rod. Jiang Hai only put a total of 3 fishing rods here, 1 for each of them. Then they put on the fake bait, which was specially bought by Jiang Hai after the night fishing, and started fishing. Jiang Hai, don't you want to fish? Looking at the 3 people holding a fishing rod, under the command of Fu Yuan, who once fished at sea, they started fishing. Well, Fu Yuan also fished here because of Jiang Hai. Except for him, no one else has fished at sea, but it seems that they are really good at it. And LV Jiao stood beside Huang Yunfei and looked at Jiang Hai standing next to him. She couldn't help but ask him. In her opinion, her husband, the 3 of them snatched Jiang Hai's fishing rod and left Jiang Hai out there in the sun. Fishing. Hearing LV Jiao's question, Jiang Hai smiled and began to arrange the fishing line around him. But you don't have a fishing rod. How can you fish? Yunfei, give the fishing rod to Jiang Hai. Hearing Jiang Hai say that he wants to fish, LV Jiao couldn't help but ask him with some doubts. Then she turned to look at Huang Yunfei and asked him to give up a fishing rod first. But now Huang Yunfei is in a good mood, directly asking him to return the fishing rod. He is somewhat unwilling. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, several people here can't help but frown and look at Jiang Hai in unison. No need for fishing rods. Let them use these things. I can catch more than them without a fishing rod. Especially Huang Yunfei, who kept the fishing rod, looked at Jiang Hai and said loudly, "You're bragging you don't need a fishing rod. Let me see." Hearing his words, Jiang Hai looked at him with contempt, then took a fake bait and hung it on his fishing line, then tied a lot of colorful stripes on the fishing line. Under their gaze, Jiang Hai directly threw the fishing line into the sea. You don't know it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Today, I will open your eyes. Looking at Jiang Hai pulling the fishing line and preparing to fish, several people were a little confused. Jiang Hai is not crazy. And Jiang Hai actually dared to say such words at this time? I think you really took the bait. Su Wei, who was the closest to Jiang Hai, was just about to mock Jiang Hai, but he didn't expect that Jiang Hai suddenly began to reel in the fishing line, and he saw a fish jumping out of the water on the fishing line in the distance. Where? Really? Damn, what the hell is this? Does this sea look at people? Following Su Wei's strange cry, several other people came over and watched Jiang Hai quickly reel in the fishing line. And when the fishing line was completely retracted, a fish about the size of a palm was already jumping on the fake bait. What kind of fish is this? Looking at the palm-sized fish, Fu Yuan was also a little confused and asked Jiang Hai, "This is a small tuna fish. It is useless. It doesn't taste good. This is used as bait." Hearing his words, Jiang Hai also smiled and explained to him, "Yes, now Jiang Hai is using the fishing technique that he was shocked by the local girl when he was in the Caribbean. A fishing line, some colored rope, and a hook can catch fish. Compared to this kind of fishing method, using a fishing rod to fish was indeed much more lowly. Of course, professionals still have to use a fishing rod because only a fishing rod can catch big fish. This kind of fishing, except for catching some brainless carnivorous fish, has no effect on some smart big fish. But this thing is enough to scare Fu Yuan and the others. After watching Jiang Hai take the small tuna fish off the hook and throw into the tank next to him, the four people stopped fishing and just looked at the fish. However, Jiang Hai didn't stay idle. He threw the fishing line into the sea again, waiting for the fish to bite the bait. In less than a minute, another small tuna fish took the bait. Now Jiang Hai and the others are still in Jiang Hai Sea area. Because Jiang Hai Sea area is too rich in spiritual energy, it attracted a large number of fish. Although some of these fish are cruising around the world, when the fish enter this area, they are reluctant to leave, such as those tuna fish. In addition to these fish, some other fish in the sea will also be reluctant to leave after swimming over and take root here. This is also why Jiang Hai is not worried about the food problem of Big Fool, the 14 dolphins, and his newly collected Roger, king sour squid. Because these foreign species are abnormally rich, it is enough for them to eat. And those large carnivores, such as sharks, are attracted by these foreign species. In front of a king sour squid, a sand tiger shark that is bigger than a great white shark, plus a shark that is also not small, plus 14 dolphins, those sharks have no other choice but to run away. So imagine, when Jiang Hai starts fishing next year, what will his harvest be like? It's a little scary just thinking about it. This kind of small tuna fish is originally a warm and tropical species, but Jiang Hai also has a lot of them. About half an hour or so, Jiang Hai has already caught more than 20 such small tuna fish. Seeing Jiang Hai constantly pulling up the fish, Huang Yunfei and the others also put aside their initial curiosity and wanted to go fishing, but this thing also requires skill. With their mediocre skills, it is not easy to catch these fish. In half an hour, only Fu Yuan, who has fished before, caught a sea bass by sheer luck. But in Jiang Hai's view, this fish should be used as bait because this little guy is too small, about 10 centimeters. But Fu Yuan was so excited that he hugged the fish and took a photo. As a result, he accidentally let the fish jump into the water. Okay, it's almost done. After calculating in his mind, Jiang Hai said after pulling back the last small tuna fish, "What? You don't want to fish anymore? Didn't you say that this kind of fish is not delicious?" Hearing Jiang Hai say that it's almost done, Dian Yunfei and the others were still not satisfied. But at sea, they would not question Jiang Hai, so they just asked with some doubts. "No, you guys go ahead. I mean, these small fish are almost done. These fish are not edible. I will use them to get some edible fish for you." After Jiang Hai finished speaking, he smiled and took back the fishing line. Then he took down the fake bait and scooped up a small tuna. He used his tactical dagger and easily killed the fish with a few cuts. Then he removed the fins and scratched some wounds on them. Then he picked up the fish, hung it on the hook tied to the fishing line, and threw the line into the sea. After that, they just had to wait. The fish they were going to catch this time were bigger carnivorous fish, which were much more difficult to catch than small tuna fish. Seeing Jiang Hai's actions, although Huang Yunfei and the others didn't say anything, they were all thinking in their hearts, what kind of fish is Jiang Hai trying to catch? But they looked at Jiang Hai suspiciously for a long time, and there was no movement from Jiang Hai's side. Gradually, they stopped paying attention to Jiang Hai's side. But at this moment, Jiang Hai suddenly moved. He quickly put away the fishing line. As soon as they saw Jiang Hai's actions, everyone focused their attention on him. However, they couldn't see what Jiang Hai was trying to pull. When the fishing line was about 3 or 4 meters away from the ship's deck, they could see that on the other end of the fishing line, there was a slender fish, almost a meter long, struggling to pull the line. Fish, what a big fish! Looking at the big fish under the water, LV Jiao couldn't help but exclaim excitedly. Jiang Hai also gestured to everyone, and in an instant, he pulled the fish directly to the platform. After the fish reached the platform, it began to struggle violently, wanting to jump back into the sea. But even so, it didn't open its mouth. Chapter 601. What the hell? What kind of fish is this? It's so big and it looks so fierce. Looking at the struggling fish, Fu Yuan couldn't help but come over and wanted to catch the fish to take a look, but Jiang Hai stopped him one step ahead of him. You don't want your finger. You dare to touch it when you don't know what kind of fish it is. Hearing Jiang Hai's words, Fu Yuan was a little confused. Isn't it just a fish? Although it's a little big, it's not big enough to bite off my finger. This is barracuda, also known as sea wolf. Look at these fangs. This fish has a strong vitality and is quite ferocious. If you touch its mouth before it dies, it definitely won't mind tasting human flesh. Looking at everyone's puzzled eyes, Jiang Hai said to them. Then he picked up a stick that had been prepared long ago and directly hit the fish to death. Then he opened the fish's mouth and took out the small tuna that had been bitten by it, but there was no way to use it. He directly threw it into the sea to feed the fish. To catch new fish, he needs to change the bait. What the hell? This thing is so fierce. I want to hold it and take a picture. Come on, Su Wei, help me take a picture. Hearing Jiang Hai's introduction, Fu Yuan's eyes couldn't help but shine. He picked up the fish with a serious face and asked Su Wei to take a picture for him with a smile. Of course, after he finished taking pictures, Su Wei, Huang Yunfei, and LV Jiao all took pictures. For them, this fish, which is almost 1.5 meters long, is a big fish. Even if they didn't catch it, they were very happy. After everyone took pictures, they also put the fish in a box full of ice next to them, according to Jiang Hai's instructions. According to Jiang Hai, this is called ice fresh, and it will taste good later. After dealing with the fish, Su Wei and the others continued to fish, but they put more of their thoughts on Jiang Hai. They are waiting to see if Jiang Hai can catch more and better fish. This time, they didn't have to wait too long. After about 10 minutes, Jiang Hai began to quickly reel in the line again. As soon as they saw Jiang Hai reel in the line, the people here surrounded him. Jiang Hai's reel in the line was very fast, even faster than the reel in with a fishing rod. Not long after, the other end of the line appeared on the sea level. This time, Jiang Hai didn't catch a barracuda, but a sea bass. It's the same species as the one Fu Yuan caught just now, but it's much worse in size. If Jiang Hai's fish is his grandson, then this fish is his grandfather. Although it hasn't been pulled out of the water yet, the fish on Jiang Hai's side has begun to show its size. The one caught by Fu Yuan is only about 10 centimeters long, but the one caught by Jiang Hai is almost no shorter than the barracuda just now. It's about 1 meter long. Otherwise, it would be impossible to eat a whole small tuna. This fish is not like the barracuda. Its body is slender. This fish looks a bit like the fathead fish. It has a big head, a big mouth, and a wide body. Jiang Hai looked at the fish, and without saying a word, he directly threw it on the platform. Then he directly killed it with a stick and lifted the fish up. With this lift, Jiang Hai couldn't help nodding with satisfaction. This fish is less than 1 meter long. It may be a little short. The weight is about 15 kilograms, which is about 30 kilograms. The difference is not big. The barracuda is about 20 kilograms. The two fish are 50 kilograms. After removing the head, the internal organs, and the bones, more than 20 kilograms of meat can be obtained, which is enough for Jiang Hai and others to eat. After all, this is his own fishing ground. Jiang Hai doesn't plan to fish too much. These two fish are enough. After this fish was put on the table, it naturally attracted a large wave of photos and showing off. After everyone took photos, Jiang Hai also poured the rest of the small tuna back into the sea and then began to clean up with the two fish, removing the head, bleeding, scraping the scales, and removing the internal organs. After a series of things were done, Jiang Hai also began to deal with the meat. These sea fish have a big bone. Unlike the river fish, which have many small burrs, these sea fish don't have many bones. He went up and cut down the back of the fish, and a fish bone was shaved out. Of course, there is still a lot of meat on the fish bone, but Jiang Hai disdains to eat this meat. After staying in the United States for a long time, he has developed the habit of wasting food. Holding 4 fish, Jiang Hai went up to marinate the fish. Because of Jiang Hai, Huang Yunfei and the others didn't want to fish. At least, they didn't want to fish today. After putting away the fishing rod, they went to the upper deck. In the living room, they watched TV, drank beer, and watched Jiang Hai marinate the fish there. This made these 4 people quite happy. The TV in Jiang Hai's yacht is a satellite TV, and it can also be received by domestic stations. Of course, the premise is that it has to be on the satellite. Some local stations can't receive it. Watching Huaxia on a yacht in the United States, enjoying the sea breeze, drinking beer, and waiting for delicious food, is there anything more beautiful than this? Not long after, Jiang Hai finished marinating the fish. Then, he took a charcoal stove to the deck. Today, they're going to roast the fish. This time, they can't be lazy. They also gathered there and got busy. Those who burned the charcoal burned the charcoal. Those who took the tables and chairs, and those who cleaned the bowls and chopsticks cleaned the bowls and chopsticks. There is strength in numbers. Not long after, they are almost done. After the charcoal is burned, it needs to be burned for a while before it can be roasted. Jiang Hai and the others also took advantage of this time to take a look at the yacht's steering room. After everything is done, Jiang Hai and the others took the marinated fish and the beef from home to the deck and began to roast. Although these fish are not raised by Jiang Hai, after all, they have absorbed the spiritual energy of Jiang Hai. So when they're roasted, the taste of the meat is quite good. Although it can't be compared to the taste of beef and lobster, in terms of fish alone, the taste of these 2 big fish is already not worse than the general yellowfin golden spear. Of course, the difference in price is very big. However, for Huang Yunfei and the others, these fish are also very delicious. Some words of praise are constantly brushed in his circle of friends. Many people are envious, jealous, and hateful. Of course, what they hate is that they can't replace them to go there to play. Jiang Hai, your life is too corrupt. After taking a sip of beer, Huang Yunfei couldn't help but sigh. In terms of making money, he naturally can't make as much as Jiang Hai, but he is also a person who doesn't lack money. However, compared with his daily work, he is really far behind Jiang Hai. The gap is already not easy to describe with words. Living in such a big villa every day, surrounded by beautiful women, beasts in the mountains, cattle and sheep on the land, seafood in the sea, he can eat whatever he wants. If he is not happy, he will drive the yacht to the sea. At home, he can also ride a horse, play with guns, and so on. This kind of life is really enviable to others. A year ago, who would have thought that Jiang Hai would be like this? At that time, these brothers also thought that Jiang Hai's greatest development in the future may be that he may reconcile with Qi Li and then go to Qi Li's company to do something. Who would have thought that he would actually live such a godlike life? After listening to his words, Jiang Hai also chuckled. In fact, not only him, but Jiang Hai also didn't think that he would live such a godlike life one day. But sometimes, things are so sudden. Who would have thought? The group of people had a very happy lunch. If they couldn't eat, they would wash it with water and then throw it directly into the sea. These fish will not be wasted in the sea. After all, they're not going home to feed ornamental fish. There is not much difference between raw and cooked meat. After everything was done, Jiang Hai and the others returned to the dock around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Then, they changed to a small boat and went directly to the coral reef. In the afternoon, Jiang Hai arranged for them to snorkel. They certainly can't do real diving. After all, they haven't learned how to do it, and Jiang Hai can't take them. However, it didn't matter if they were snorkeling. Ever since the sea was filled with spirit energy, plankton grew the most. The coral polyps, which fed on plankton, grew faster after eating plankton that contained spirit energy. Since March of this year, Zhanghai's coral group has almost doubled in size. Now, not only are there many coral groups in the sea about 10 meters deep, but there are also coral groups in the sea between 2 and 5 meters deep. The only pity is that these corals are still mainly gray and not beautiful at all. Zhanghai is already prepared to wait until next summer to introduce some colorful corals to make his underwater world colorful. Because the waterline on this side of the coral reef is very shallow, large ships can't sail over, but small boats can pass through unimpeded. After Zhanghai and the others arrived, everyone changed into their respective swimsuits in the cabin. They also prepared glasses and snorkeling tubes. Everything is ready. Zhanghai also told them what to pay attention to when they go into the water. Scorpions and sea snakes were definitely not to be touched. Jellyfish were definitely not to be touched. Sea anemones were definitely not to be touched. Sea slugs were definitely not to be touched. Colorful fishes were definitely not to be touched. Even if you saw a large reef cave, there might be eels or sharks inside. That was definitely not to be touched. After repeated reminders and confirming all the problems, Zhanghai and the others went into the water. Looking at the gray coral world on the surface of the water, Zhanghai didn't feel anything, but Huang Yunfei and the others were very excited. Fortunately, they still remembered Zhanghai's words to stay away from those dangers. At most, they would chase some small fish to play with. After playing here for about 2 hours, these people climbed onto the boat and returned to the dock, ready to go back for dinner. This was because they had eaten Zhanghai's food in the past 2 days. Otherwise, with their original weak bodies, they estimated that they couldn't even crawl after playing for 2 hours. They wouldn't be as unsatisfied as they were now. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.